Hey everybody, it's Aldo Gandhi, and I just want to let you know really quickly that our swag shop is reopened. DeepDishTees.com is where you go, and that's tees with T-E-E-S. Clever name, guys. They're the new home of our merchandise. You can get t-shirts, you can get caps, you can get coffee mugs, you can get hoodies, you can get all sorts of good stuff, and you'll help out the bar room with the purchase. So head over to DeepDishTees.com.
Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Put the children to bed. It's time for Dan and Aldo to bare their souls.
I love the Chicago Bears more than I do masturbating, and that is a lot.
Then, with 3 seconds left, Bob Avellini throws a 30-something yard touchdown pass to Greg Latta, and the Bears win, and I literally shit my pants. I swear to God, I literally did.
Eric Kramer, for me, I love the guy. He's a tragic figure. I mean, he embodies all that is.
If they don't run the ball here, I'm going to vomit. I swear to God.
Look, I don't mean any disrespect. He just didn't play that well. Not for a guy of his caliber.
You know, they won, but I'm going to be miserable all week because they stunk.
I don't really have any recollection of that at all, but I guess perhaps I blacked it all out.
So, Dan, tape is the ultimate tool for scouts and for coaches to evaluate players, to detect plays and so forth. And they spend hours looking at tape, right? Why do they so often get shit wrong?
Ladies and gentlemen, Dan and Aldo.
Baby! My favorite time of the week that I get to spend with my Valentine, Dan Aguirre. How are you, brother?
Hey, man, what's up? I'm a little subdued. I'm tired, but I'm here, and I'm excited to be here. I guess heavy Super Bowl talk, right?
We're going to have some heavy Super Bowl talk, and we're also going to get to know the coordinators a little bit. I grabbed some of the sound bites from their recent press conferences, and I think it's important. We haven't gone through listening to them talk, and I think it's important to do so to get to know who they are. And I've selected some sound bites. First of all, I'm really impressed by those press conferences. Now, press conferences don't mean much, but you do at least get to understand their personalities, their philosophies, and so forth. And so I walked away super impressed, and I'm anxious to play some of those for you to get your take on it. And Tooch will jump in later and share his take. And of course, throughout the broadcast, we will have interaction with everyone in the chat room. People are pouring in. It looks like it's open seating at the Dallas football stadium. Did you see that video of people like trampling one another to get a I guess it was standing room only at the Dallas playoff game or something like that. I don't know what the fuck it was. I don't remember shit. But
Hey, well, I will say this. When is the last time that you or anybody said that they were super impressed with the Bears press conference?
That's right. We have to go back to
George Howell. No, I'm just kidding.
We have to go back to the Matt Nagy inaugural press conference. I was somewhat impressed. Definitely, it was a huge improvement over John Fox's press conferences, where he would openly lie and he would openly, avoid answers to questions and stuff.
He was just a dick.
Yeah, Fox was a dick. Yeah, that's a perfect way of putting it. And then Nagy impressed me. There was a nice fresh breath of fresh air. But after the 2018 season, everything went south for the guy. And I'm so glad. You're still happy that he's gone?
Absolutely. Do you think in hindsight, the worst thing that could have happened, not only for the Bears and for Matt Nagy as a man and as a coach, was for him to receive that Coach of the Year award?
No, I think that he still would have fucked up regardless of what happened. I think that the worst thing that happened to him was that when he was created, they put too much ego into his brain. And that's
but maybe that helped inflate his ego. He's like, I'm the Coach of the Year. I know what I'm doing. It's just my system that these players can't understand it.
Last says, I love Mike Ditka's intro press conference. Do you recall seeing that? Because I know you see a lot of stuff on replay or anything like that. Dan, do you recall Ditka's inaugural press conference?
I've seen sound bites. Again, I was too young at the time. Plus, in 1982, it's not like it was easy to consume media. But yeah, I've seen it retrospectively, not in full. But yeah, I mean, he and Hallis both sitting there. I've seen clips.
Yeah, that was a great press conference. In fact, all of Mike Ditka's press conferences were gold. I mean,
his New Orleans ones were good.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think the guy has ever had a bad press conference. He's been moody. He's been happy. He's every emotion imaginable. Mike Ditka displayed it in his press conferences, whether he was here in Chicago or New Orleans, and those were a treat. God bless the guy. I know he's getting up there in age. Every time I see him in those Point Bets commercial, I like go, oh man, poor guy. He's getting a lot older than I am right now, and I'm getting pretty old. I went to the dentist today, and I got $9,000 worth of work to do on my teeth because I got a couple of. I don't want to get into all the details, but I got a couple of procedures, and I went to this high-end dentists where they've got reclining chairs with massage. They give you a massage as they're working on your teeth. They put sunglasses on you so the harsh light that they use to look into your mouth, doesn't bother you. There's a TV on the ceiling that I could watch ESPN while they're doing all this procedure. And I'm like, I'm loving this. And then the lady brings me into the room and says, okay, this is how much it's going to cost to do the work that we talked about. I'm like, holy shit. Yeah.
Well, not to placate you, but when I was with you, I didn't think, man, Aldo's got some fucked up teeth. I didn't think that. My
teeth are generally good, but I got a couple of cavities and I got some, 75% of Americans have periodontal gum disease. And so I've got some inflamed gums. And so they got to go through a procedure to do that. So, I haven't been to the dentist in 3 years because of the pandemic. And so my teeth, I let them go a bit. So I got to pay. That is what it is. So anyway, I also have a media segment for us. There was nothing super substantial, but I got Dick Butkus. Dick Butkus.
He's been in the news lately, huh?
Yes, he has. What a great motherfucker he is, man. He just telling it like it is about Justin Fields and the former coaching staff and how they didn't coach him up. So I've got some of that. I got Hub Arkish talking about the MVP award. And I wanted to ask you a question because my feeling is that in pro football, I don't think there should be an MVP award. There shouldn't. I mean, pro football is the ultimate team sport, and 99 times out of 100, it's going to be given to the quarterback, and it's just kind of catered to award the quarterback as the most valuable player. But I don't think football should have an MVP. You have any thoughts on that?
I'm not against there being an MVP. I'm against it being. It feels like you're at the prom and who's going to be the king and the queen, and it's based on popularity. It's like the fucking Pro Bowl balloting. It has nothing to do with like who actually, in some instances, deserved it. Although I won't sit here and say that Rodgers hasn't played well enough to earn these votes, but I don't know. Who did Hub vote for? He said he wouldn't vote. Did he vote for Cooper Kupp?
He did reveal that sole vote that Cooper Kupp got in the MVP voting was his.
I wonder who. I mean, am I crazy in thinking that Stafford should have won MVP in the game? for the Super Bowl?
I agree, and that's another thing in the media bite segment that the reporters got to put their votes in by the 2-minute warning of the fourth quarter. So you're not even allowed to see the entire game before you vote. Now, how fucking stupid is that? Because the game-winning play can and did happen after the 2-minute warning. So
imagine if they voted for Cooper Kupp, and let's say he had a game-losing fumble.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like the first play after the 2-minute warning, he catches just a regular pass, gets hit. It's fumble. Oh, Cincinnati recovers it. The game is over.
Mm-hmm.
But he's the MVP.
Yeah. Cody makes a good point. He says, I think the MVP should be announced after the Super Bowl to account for playoffs. Because if that's the case, then it would have been Aaron Rodgers getting one vote as opposed to just to Cooper Kupp getting one vote, because his playoff, I think he was.
But it's supposed to be for the regular season, though.
Yeah, but that's Cody's point, is that it should encompass the entire season, playoffs and regular season.
I respectfully disagree with that point, because you could have someone that just is phenomenal, but for whatever reason barely misses the playoffs, and it's not his fault.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he's on a team with a terrible defense, or maybe they lose the division or something, and then something fluky happens and they don't get in. Sometimes like the 2013 Bears, it's like you win the North but you can't win the wild card.
Yeah. Jeremy says Stafford had 2 interceptions that could have cost his team the game. Yeah, that is right. There were 2 interceptions. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I did too, but it's still overall his completion percentage was high, and he made the game-winning throw when it was necessary.
Yep.
We still should touch on, like we talked about, that penalty.
Yes. Let's talk
because
about
that's so controversial. But I know you're trying to set up the overall show, so let me
no,
not.
That's fine. I mean, we go wherever we go to, man. We bob and weave and jab and punch. No, you're right. That penalty, Cooper Kupp. How much time was there left? It was about a minute and
it's under
seconds.
2 minutes. I mean, and that gave them first and goal from the 1-yard line. I mean,
you don't think it should have been called?
Right? One thing, let me say, and I've been critical of Chris Collinsworth. I thought Collinsworth did the best he could in that position. He can't. I've seen so many people critical of him, saying that he should have called them out. When Al went to him, he was like, "That's the call they made on the field."
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's not that he lacks the temerity. In that situation, you don't want to call out the officials and say that was a stupid call,
mm-hmm.
or, oh, what a dumb call, or question their integrity on air in the biggest game of the season. So I don't know what else Chris could have done there. To answer your question, I think that it looked more like illegal contact, but as I told you, I don't know if it was inside 5 yards or not. I didn't go and analyze it. If it was within 5 yards
mm-hmm.
and it wasn't illegal contact, then I think it's an awful call.
Mm-hmm.
Because he does, it's a little grabby.
Yeah,
there are some hands there, but if it's within 5 yards, that's legal by definition. Then I don't see any interference.
Mm-hmm. To me, I was actually surprised at the amount of attention that call was getting on social media. I know it was ticky-tacky, but it was there. It's under 2 minutes. Under 2 minutes, I think you should call just about everything, because you don't want to be accused of missing a call that could determine the game. The more egregious call to me was when Jalen Ramsey was face masked, and that was not called. By the way, Jabari Lou says Aaron Donald should have gotten MVP. He had the game-winning sack, and he led that defense all 4 quarters. Jabari, a lot of people are saying that Donald was kind of nullified a bit in the first half.
He was early on.
Yeah, and I can see that, because the Bengals came out with a strategy to nullify him, and so there was some double teaming going on and so forth. It made it very difficult. But you're right, Jabari. I mean, all the votes were cast before he made that game-winning sack. So that gets to Hub's point of how stupid it is that they got to vote on the MVP when the game isn't even over yet. We'll talk about that more at the other end of the media highlights. But to me, what'd you think about the Jalen Ramsey non-call?
No, when it was live, I didn't see that. I thought that he fell down.
Mm-hmm.
And when they showed the replay, I was like, wow, they let him get away with that.
Right.
If you can backtrack just a minute,
Please.
I don't want to mispronounce this gentleman's name,
Mm-hmm.
but he's someone that interacts with me, and I think with you as well. Is it Sanjin Jovanovic?
That is correct.
Mr. Jovanovic was pointing out that all the shit that I've taken over the years for my criticism of Khalil Mack.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I'm saying this just like, oh, pat me on the back. He was making the point is, as Bear fans, a lot of us, have put Mack up on this pedestal that he's so great. And like Donald single-handedly there at the end was just like affecting the outcome, what seemingly his will to get that title.
Mm-hmm.
What just palpable. He was saying that, like, have you ever seen Khalil Mack do that? I mean, like, Donald's like the game record, not Mack. And I was like, fuck, man, I think Robert Quinn's better than Khalil Mack.
Yeah, that's a tough one to say. I think Robert Quinn had in 2021 a better season than Khalil Mack has ever had with the Bears.
Absolutely.
So,
and he didn't have anybody like, quote unquote, like Mack on the other side, but a couple of games.
Right. Well, right. I think it was 5 games. And after 5 or 6 games, Khalil Mack had a sack per game playing alongside Robert Quinn. One of the things that I'm going to miss about Sean Desai, and I think Mike Patton should get credit for that, were the exotic blitzes that enabled, that really accelerated or really gave power to that combination of Quinn and Mack. I hope that the new defensive coordinator, we'll hear from him later, I hope that he can really make it productive for those two guys, because if they play, those two guys together, play the same way they did the first 5-6 games of the season,
then we got something.
We've got something incredible.
And we're in it. Like, I honestly believe without Matt Nagy here and someone coaching Fields up, which I know is going to be your audio as well. I would imagine with Dick Butkus saying, he wasn't coaching here.
Yes.
If you have Fields playing the way we all think he can play, and if your defense can just be good. It doesn't have to be great, but just good. If your offense can be good, your defense is good, that at least gives you an opportunity to be in it, in the thick of it. And to me, that makes me happy, because Cincinnati once more wasn't supposed to be in it. And to me, in that Super Bowl, they had the game. And this is just my personal opinion. They sat on that lead.
Yes.
It felt like they were happy with that lead in the third quarter and got ultra conservative. And the Rams were just stopping the running game. Mixon's a decent back, but there was like 10 tackles for losses or something. And they were just content with, couple, quarterback sacked and 2 runs and a punt. I don't know if that's the exact, playlist, but the point is, it felt like they thought the game was over. And it's hard to suddenly, Stafford throws the touchdown after the penalty. We know that. And they got one more chance. So they can't complain too much, because at least they had all their timeouts. They got the ball back. All they needed was 3 points, and they've got a great kicker. So everything's out in front of them. But it's hard to go back out when for the last hour you've been playing in neutral. You've been playing to not lose, and then suddenly you got to turn it back on and go right back out there and then try to win. That's what I was thinking at the time. I was like, man, they've been cold ever since that, because the second half they had that play, the big play, then they had the one that should have been the face mask and was a touchdown. They got a pick and a quick field goal, and they didn't do shit the rest of the game.
It seems to me like the play calling was, when they became run focused, that happened too early, and they should have continued to utilize Burrow. They perhaps got afraid of that Rams pass rush. NFL Films has started to release that fabulous footage they do every year of the Super Bowl. They got the coaches mic'd up and so forth. And there's one clip that I saw where Sean McVay, after the Bengals stopped the running play, he says, we're going to have to put the game into Stafford's hands, words to that effect. And so that was great that young coach saw that, they wanted to establish their run. They wanted to have a balance, but it just wasn't fucking happening for them. They
Right.
they could not run the ball on the Bengals. And so he knew that he was going to have to, that big acquisition where they traded all that draft capital for Stafford. This was it. This was the moment. He was going to have to do it, and he did. And social media has erupted because Dan Orlovsky says that Stafford deserves to go to the Super Bowl.
Or the Hall of Fame.
The Hall of Fame. Not everybody agrees. What say you?
I don't think he's a Hall of Famer, but that doesn't mean, that he's not a great player, because we always thought that we both have said that he was better than what he's shown in Detroit. But having said that, what he had in Detroit was what he had. And when you combine all of that, if he retired today, I don't think he's a Hall of Famer, but it doesn't matter. He got that Super Bowl. He could have been the MVP. They gave up 2 first-round picks, and he had to throw that big pass to Cooper Kupp to beat Tom Brady after an epic collapse by their defense, and then he still won the game. And then he comes back and wins the Super Bowl in the clutch. He doesn't have to do anything to prove shit to anybody. You're my opinion.
Absolutely right. And let's remember, he's 34 years old. And so in today's NFL.
And has taken a beating.
Oh, my gosh.
Over the years. Remember, he had a broken back or something his last year in Detroit, right? Would he have some fractured vertebrae in his back or something?
Yeah. I vaguely remember that. So, yeah, he definitely has taken a beating. The Lions never had a run game to support him. They never had a pass blocking line to support him. They did give him, Calvin Johnson, Megatron, and that was fantastic.
And they made the playoffs 3 times with that team.
Right. So,
which how many other Lions teams have made it 3 times?
None. We got to go back to the 50s, I guess.
I don't think he's a Hall of Famer, but so what?
But he could still make it. He's only 34. So if he goes to the Super Bowl and becomes the Super Bowl MVP next year or the year after or even the year after, then all of a sudden his credentials start to amass. And he's had a couple of 4,500-yard seasons, if I remember correctly. The guy has been proficient. He's been criticized for being a stat stuffer. I never really saw him being a stat stuffer. I always saw him as being a better than average quarterback who didn't have a team around him to win Super Bowls. That was always my assessment of Matt Stafford. Now, Greg Gabriel doesn't like Stafford at all. When he was at Georgia, he gave him a poor scouting report, and throughout his entire career, he would tweet out things against Stafford. And now, I asked him about that on Monday, and he almost changed the topic a little bit. He was a little reluctant to give him the props that he deserves.
Oh, come on, Greg, you're better than that.
I'm not saying that he didn't. I'm just saying you could tell it was like pulling a tooth,
Yeah, and I always bring things back to Jay Cutler, as you know.
Yes.
I honestly believe, man, what you saw from Stafford could have been Cutler in the right situation. Like if Mike Shanahan doesn't leave, Denver isn't fired, that could have been Cutler. Or if the Bears would have had, some better offensive coaches around him, or a better system. Mike Martz's system was so great in 99, but by 2010, it didn't work anymore. Plus, we didn't have the personnel to run it in Chicago when you're not on the greatest show on turf. You're on the worst grass in the league.
That's right.
It just didn't work, but that could have been Cutler.
Yep.
I honestly believe Stafford has always had better statistics than Jay. I don't want to ignore that, but I think Jay had the same talent as Stafford and could have been in another scenario, but we'll never know.
Don Burr says that Stafford would have been the best quarterback in Bears history had the Bears had him on the roster. I'm not going to argue.
I can't argue with that statistically.
Sid Luckman, back in his day, he was like the best quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, but it's impossible really to compare quarterbacks from that era with this era. But yeah, Don is absolutely right. So
we would have been salivating to have multiple 4,000-yard seasons from a quarterback like Stafford. So I won't disagree with Don.
But what's interesting though about that premise is, Matt Stafford, Jay Cutler. They're very, very similar. The thing that's happened with Stafford is that he finally got onto a team where the head coach really set up a system based for his talents and got the personnel to support him. And Cutler never had that in Chicago.
Right. And he would have if Shanahan wouldn't have been fired. Like Mike Shanahan believed in him.
Mm-hmm.
And he was, as you know, was a Super Bowl winning coach. And before that, offensive coordinator that won a Super Bowl. So, and obviously you see his son's got a good pedigree. So he would have catered the offense, like you just said, for Stafford toward Jay. If Jay would have just been able to stick around in Denver with Mike Shanahan, he would have won a Super Bowl, especially if you have Brandon Marshall, if he doesn't lose his, his mindset and things like that. And you have Eddie Royal, and they had some players back then. Tony Scheffler at tight end.
Yeah. Art by Nike says Bears have had mailmen as quarterback for decades, which is funny because Bobby Avellini looked like my mailman.
Remember, we saw a Bob Avellini jersey in Cleveland.
That's right. And we did talk to that guy, right? He told us,
I think so.
I think he told us that there was some connection or something. But yeah, that is great. I have a Bobby Avellini jersey. Again, what the most obscure jersey you own is which one?
I would say David Terrell.
Yeah, the broken foot David Terrell. Hey, let's draft a wide receiver who's coming out of Michigan with a broken foot. Where
my old friend Dan, who had that fame for a couple of years there on the internet as the progressive liberal Daniel Richards.
Mm-hmm.
Again, he was wrestling as this anti-Trump character and all these Republican. And he was suddenly on Vice and Sports Illustrated, HBO. He was on Tucker Carlson's show. He played against David Terrell in high school basketball.
Mm-hmm.
So he was always so proud of that, to say, like, man, I used to own this dude in high school. Granted, a different sport, but still, you had a professional athlete that you were killing on the court, and then he's in the NFL now.
Do you think somebody in the chat room just said, did you guys watch any Bears games? Cutler was awful. I just don't see that. Awful? Absolutely not. First of all, he was one of the most courageous quarterbacks in NFL history. Forget about just the Bears. This guy took a beating, and he showed up and he played his heart out. I'm going to roll some highlights while we talk about Jay's proficiency.
Can I say one thing about that to add to your point?
Please do.
And maybe Don will remember this, the Lions fan. In 2013, Jay was in Washington and tore his groin.
Mm-hmm.
That's the game where Robbie Gould, it seemed to have kicked a field goal to win it that appeared to be good, and they called it bad. They said no good, and no one complained. They went to overtime, and RG3 led them to a victory. But I always thought that Gould made the field goal. It really looked good to me, but what do I know? But so Jay tears his groin, and for the next 10 days he had this thing called a HARP machine, because back then he was on Waddle and Sylvie, and they were they were shooting him with an injection in his fucking balls, taking blood from his balls, putting into this machine that spun the platelets and then re-injecting himself in the balls. So he was taking injections in the balls multiple times a day, and just to get ready for that Detroit game, which he came back and played. I think he missed one game, but came back for the Lions game. And he did that by being a man and taking multiple injections in the ball bag every day for 2 weeks. I don't think I could do that.
I know I could never do that. But as you were sharing that story, I just put up some random highlights I found on YouTube of Jay's deep throws. The guy had a phenomenal arm. He's escaping pressure. He's stepping up in the pocket. Look at this pass. He throws it up 70 yards in the air, completes it to the good old number 13. Who was number 13 on the Bears? Was that
Johnny Knox?
Johnny Knox. And that was a great combination for the 2 or 3 years that they were together. Him and Knox. That was great. It's a shame that the Bears did not do what they should have done to provide Cutler with all the weapons that he needed. They did not help him with pass blockers. They acquired Jay Cutler, and then they said, okay, that's done. Let's go back to building the defense. Lovie Smith and Jerry Angelo were just so intent about building a top 5 defense, and they did. But it came at the expense of giving Cutler the
but that defense. I again, there's so many people that are Bear fans that just pound their chest about that defense. And I'll give you an example. So if you recall, in 2012, as we've talked about many times, they started 7-1. All right, so they lose that game to Colin Kaepernick in his first start on Monday Night Football when Jason Campbell got sacked like 8 times.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the next week they're back in Chicago against the Seahawks, and they've got, I think it was a 10-7 lead or something, and Seattle goes 97 yards on our defense to presumably win the game with like 20 seconds to go. So what happens? Jay gets on the field, throws a goddamn bullet down the field like 65 yards to Brandon Marshall, who catches it, dives out of bounds, sets up Robbie. He makes the kick. So we go to overtime. You think about this now. This was Urlacher's last game, by the way. Seattle goes 97 yards on our vaunted defense. Jay throws the pass to Marshall, sets up this miracle field goal. Seattle gets the ball in overtime, and they go 80 yards and score a touchdown with the former Viking. What was his name? Simeon. No, something Moss. What was his name? The fucking wide receiver. He didn't do much.
Was it Santana Moss?
No, he wasn't a wide receiver, was he?
Yeah, he was.
Okay, man, whatever. The point is Seattle won in overtime. The defense gave up a 97-yard drive, an 80-yard drive back-to-back in Chicago against a rookie, Russell Wilson. If they win that game, they make the playoffs.
Yeah. Santana Moss, Travis is saying, and I believe that's
okay. Correct. Yeah, I think somebody scored there at the end that was a former Viking. His name, fuck it, who cares?
What year was that? What year was that?
2012.
2012.
This is the week after Kaepernick beat us in his first ever start.
Yeah, I get you.
The next week, again, they lose to Seattle at home, 80-yard drive and a 97-yard drive back-to-back. But Jay, in between that, had that miracle pass to Brandon Marshall that set up a Robbie field goal to send it to overtime, but he didn't touch the ball again in overtime. So, again, we pound our chest about our defense. Even when Jay was good, the defense, who was still good back then, fucking just melted like hot butter.
Yep. Cutler threw 17-26, 233 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He was not sacked in that game. Russell Wilson was sacked twice, threw for 293 yards, also had 2 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. The touchdown catchers were, who is S. Rice? That's who I was thinking. Sidney Rice. There you go. That's him.
It was a former Viking. It was somebody Rice, though.
Yeah, it's Sidney Rice.
Sidney Rice. Yeah, former Viking. I knew there was a former Viking.
Yeah, man, you got a good memory. And then for the Bears, catching touchdown passes were Forte and Bennett, as you said. Yeah,
and Robbie's big field goal to send it to overtime.
Right.
Yeah, man, that's just an example. If the defense holds out there, the Bears make the playoffs that year. And if Lovey's not fired, then Lovey's not fired, and just everything is rewritten. We don't get Tressman. We probably don't get Phil. Even if we got, I guess we had Phil in 2012, Phil Embry, but we don't get Fox. Probably, you probably don't get Ryan Pace. Like everything is rewritten. That one game could have changed everything, and it could have changed the way we see Jay Cutler as well.
Very, very true. What else about the Super Bowl game really struck you? You want to talk about the halftime show at all? Did you enjoy it?
I did. I'm surprised, considering where they were, that there was no Ice Cube. I honestly thought Ice Cube would make some kind of surprise appearance, and instead it was 50 Cent. And I don't understand, like, why it was 50 Cent, like, and why is he playing Into Club from like fucking 04? Like, it just didn't fit to me. Like, that's my only criticism. I mean, I don't know how Mary J. Blige fit either, but okay, they wanted a lady. Okay, Kendrick Lamar. Okay, but to me, like Snoop and Dre, and then Eminem there at the end, that's perfect. And if you bring out Ice Cube, then to me, it's the greatest show of all time. It could have been, but people are saying that now. I certainly didn't think it was controversial for Eminem kneeling, and I don't know why people. I think they're looking just to be mad about something.
Factor says that he liked Eminem and Kendrick Lamar. Snoop and 50 Cent are overrated. I don't know about overrated. Maybe 50 is. Although I'm not a big connoisseur of rap and hip hop, but when that show started, what's the name of that opening tune that Dr. Dre started with? That ding, 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 ding. See, I don't know.
Was that still Dre?
At the very beginning of the halftime
Well, I don't
show.
know if that's what they opened with, but I was thinking maybe it was still Dre.
Yeah, I don't know the titles, but man, that opening song, I was like, okay, this is going to be good. And for the most part, I really, really enjoyed it. The set decoration I thought was kind of odd.
Yeah, the house thing. Like they
Yeah.
showed Snoop in a house and had a picture of him young on the wall.
Do you know why that was? Is there a reason? Is that associated with one of the songs or something?
Maybe
like
it's something to do with the video, and I'm not sure. I don't know.
Yeah. Mule says he unmuted the TV and drank the game, came back on. No, you gotta watch. You gotta listen to this to the halftime shows, even if you're not a fan of the artist. Just that way, you could, one day you're gonna sit down and make your list of best halftime shows, and you won't know if this one deserved to be number 10 or number 100. So,
it's probably the best one.
You think it's the best one?
Really? I don't like Michael Jackson, but you'd have to put Michael Jackson's show in Pasadena at 27 up there, and potentially, I guess, Prince in our game when we lost to the Colts in the rain. And I don't know, maybe The Weeknd last year. I wasn't a big fan of that show, but like other people were. Maybe J-Lo. I don't know. She looked fucking good.
Yeah.
Maybe the Rolling Stones. Tom Petty did it, but to me, the Dre show was probably the best it's probably the best.
Yeah. Well, Bruno Mars to me was my favorite. That's just music that feels like the Motown music I grew up with. So that was phenomenal. Oh, by the way, Cody and a couple of other people are saying that the staging, the houses were made to look like the houses in Compton and Watts. And so that makes a lot of sense.
That makes a lot of sense then.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I'll tell my wife that, because she and I were like, I really had a great time watching the game. It was just my wife and me. And normally she annoys the shit out of me because she asks these stupid questions and I'm trying to concentrate on the game. It got to the point where she said, like, I'm never going to watch a game with you again. I just won't. I mean, you get tired of my questions and so forth. So I begged her, watch the game with me. I don't have any interest in the game. I just want to see drama. We could talk about the commercials, halftime show. She did.
I want to mention 2 commercials, by the way.
Yeah. In a second here, she was making me laugh throughout. It helped that I smoked a little marijuana during the game. But one of the things that she really had me cracking up was she kept calling Joe Burrow Mr. Cocky Face. Look at that cocky face. That's Mr. Cocky Face. Look at Cocky Face again. Oh, look, he got sacked. No more Mr. Cocky Face, and so forth. And so after a while,
I take it that Mrs. Gandia was rooting for the Rams.
You know what? She was actually rooting for the Bengals, but she was getting so frustrated with the Bengals' performance. And one of the funny things that she says is, like, when somebody is making a play, she just doesn't understand, why didn't he just run the other way? Why didn't he throw the ball to that open guy? And I'm like, sweetheart, this game is going by so fast. It's so difficult to make plays like that. And so, but after a while, she was calling this guy Mr. Cocky Face so much. I got a feeling she was turned on by Joe Burrow, which is why she was using that term, cocky.
The way the kid dresses seems a little bit pretentious to me.
Yeah.
And he just seems like he's projecting an image that I do find annoying. But I was rooting for him on Sunday. But he does seem to be very arrogant. I will give your wife that.
It's almost like a Jim McMahon, but without as much of the cockiness, for lack of a better word. He reminds me a lot of McMahon in his demeanor and his play, to be honest with you. Jim McMahon would be in the Hall of Fame and had set passing records that would probably be broken today because of the rules if he was with another team. When he came
without Charles Martin.
Yes. Absolutely. But when he came out of BYU, I was like, man, this guy could be a fucking outstanding quarterback. And he will say it before and louder than me. The only one that held him back was Mike Ditka and his play calling. But
stand by one. I've gotten a station off here. Okay. I'll be right back.
No problem. No problem.
Hang on, I'll be right back.
All right, let me bring in the Tuja. Tuja, bring yourself in here while I get rid of the graphic. Look at this guy. Sounds like Dan is is back in World War II at Pearl Harbor. It sounds like. Bruce, how are you, brother?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Yeah. Did you enjoy the Super Bowl?
Oh yeah, I did.
That's because you won a lot of money. Right?
Yeah, I won a lot on this one. There was some easy plays that I think the books made a mistake on, and that was Evan Mcpherson over 1.5 field goals. That's the Bengals kicker. I mean, this guy's had like 2+ field goals in 5 of the last 6 games, and he hits from distance. Zach Taylor loves going for him. You know, I played a Bengals field goal in the first quarter. That hit. I had Bengals plus 4.5. I had the under 48.5. So just killed it. I mean, it was great. Great night.
That was the bet I wish I would have made, because I saw you talking about it, and I saw North tweeted about it. He said his main bet was the under, and I thought about it, and I said to myself, you know what? It makes such a smart bet, but it was like minutes before kickoff, and I said, fuck it. I made 2 prop bets that'll do it.
I made $345 that night.
Look at this guy.
Oh.
Look at this guy.
Ooh. Yeah, it was nice. Nice. Sign up for VIP if you want to make some.
Everybody go to at John Santucci VIP and get those picks and make some money. Dan, are you back?
Yes, it was Fox News creating the disturbance. Imagine that. Fox News Radio. Not kidding.
Don't get me started on Fox News. Oh my gosh, the misinformation.
You know,
it was the Brian Kilmeade show, which makes me want to kill myself listening to it.
I don't even know who that is.
He's the Fox.
He's on Fox and Friends.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
He's a funny guy. SNL is also making fun of him. So Stephen Nagishi is asking, how much did you bet in order to win that $300 and something?
The what do you call it? The over 1.5 field goals by Mcpherson, I bet $150. It was minus 120. So I was so confident in that one. That was like, 15 unit bet for me. So
Russell Webster says Dan is so liberal, it's sick.
I'll take it. I'll wear it, man. I own
it. And Tucci's a conservative, right? Would you describe yourself as a conservative?
I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of a common sense. That's my. If there was a common sense party, I'd be part of it.
Wow.
So I find.
You'll never vote for a Republican, then. I'm just kidding.
I wouldn't vote for a Democrat either, because they make no sense either. I mean, all these crazy policies. I mean, this is the foreign policy of the Democrats is insanity to me. It's like demonize Russia, force Russia to go to side with China against the United States. It's stupid. Yeah. We should be working with everybody, to further a better future for the whole world.
No, I
not making demons of other countries.
My brother, who knows nothing about politics, although he thinks he does, his philosophy is bomb everybody. I'm like, he was seriously telling me we should just go to Mexico and bomb them and take over the country. And I'm like, Harry, please shut the fuck up.
Well, the only thing I want to, because I want to get back to football, but the Republicans made quote unquote demons out of Russia from 1948 until the fall.
That's the same party as the Democrats now. It's the Warhawk Party.
Well,
they're the same. They're neoconservative neoliberals.
Say that Trump was capitulating with a horrible human being of Vladimir Putin. But let's talk about the Super Bowl.
Let's talk about the Super Bowl and turn our attention
Super Bowl
to commercials. We were going to talk about the commercials.
Yeah, there's 2 specifically that I loved. I mean, it's absolutely loved. And one was the Soprano one.
Oh, yes.
With Jamie Lynn Sigler driving. I don't remember which car company it was, and then AJ's in it at the end. And I love that one, and I love the Schwarzenegger one where he's playing Zeus.
You know what? I missed that. I saw it on the TV, but I wasn't listening to it. But that was good.
I thought it was great, and he was funny as fuck at the end. Arnold's always been a lot funnier than people give him credit for.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, he's not stiff. He's not I mean, if he didn't have an accent, I think people would have given him much more credit for his acting ability.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that he could have such a heavy accent in the early 80s, no less, and still become a major star in his late 30s with that heavy accent shows how fucking talented the guy was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed. I've got some clips up of that commercial you were mentioning with the Sopranos takeoff. It looks like it's a Jeep commercial, a Chevy Silverado. There you go.
Yeah, she's doing the same drive that Tony did in the Open.
Oh man, that was great. And that embrace that she has with her TV brother was classic.
And they're close in real life.
Yeah, and
they do a podcast together.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I know that he's had some problems with the law, and so
she's got multiple sclerosis.
That's right. I forgot about that. Oh my goodness. Gorgeous woman, I'll tell you that, man. And
yes, absolutely.
Damn good actor. I wish she was in more stuff. That was a good commercial.
Steve Buscemi commercial?
Which one was that? I missed
the bowling alley bar.
Yeah, was that a take on the Big Lebowski where the bowling thing?
Yeah, Big Lebowski Trees Lounge type takeoff. That was pretty good. The cable guy was funny. I love Jim Carrey as the cable guy.
Jim Carrey looked so old in that, didn't he?
Yeah.
He looks old now.
It was good to see Chip Douglas again. The cable guy's name in the movie, Chip Douglas.
I did like. You're right, though. I like that spot. It's weird that they placed it in the middle of halftime. You would have thought more people would have seen that, like at least before Dre's performance.
Yeah, true. Was Selma Hayek in the commercial? Foster Covers is
with the Zeus one with I forget who was the Zeus.
Was that Schwarzenegger?
Schwarzenegger was Zeus.
Was it Schwarzenegger dressed up as Zeus?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Salma Hayek was in that one.
I didn't know that. Oh,
I didn't know that either.
The tracts of land bouncing that she ran.
Salma is on my list of women that I would, sacrifice my wife for. Sweetheart, start packing. Salma's moving in. Oh, honey, I love you.
She's not going to watch this later.
No, I hope not.
Wasn't Selma Hayek the main drug dealer in Oliver Stone's movie Savages?
Yes, she was.
God, she looks so good in that.
Yes. And did you ever see the movie directed by Robert Rodriguez with George Clooney, Quentin Tarantino?
Oh yeah, you're talking about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
No.
I'm sorry, not the 1996 vampire film with Juliette Lewis.
Yes.
From Dusk Till Dawn.
From Dusk Till Dawn. Yeah, it was on recently, and
I saw that at the theater.
Oh yeah, I saw it at the theater too, and that scene where Selma Hayek comes out and does her kind of strip thing and so forth, and she walks over to Tarantino and sticks her toes in his mouth. I mean, half her foot is down his fucking throat, and he
has a foot fetish, as we know,
big time foot fetish. I mean, you could almost see the table in front of him levitating because of the hard on he had.
My favorite line of that whole movie, because he's a pedophile in the movie, and he has this vision of Juliette Lewis, who's supposed to be underage in the film.
Right.
Obviously, she wasn't, but she looks at him and she goes, whatever his name was, Richie, I think, maybe. She's like, Richie, can I ask you a question? He's like, yeah, sure. He's Tarantino. And she's like, will you eat my pussy? And he's like, yeah, I'd like to do that for you. I could do that, And later in the film, he acknowledges that he's like, you know what, that thing you asked me, I'd like to do that for you. And she's like, what are you talking about? But I love that he has this vision of her wanting him to go down on her.
That is awesome.
That was hilarious.
What was the thing from King Pookie, John, that you asked me to look at? The
Larry David commercial.
Oh, Larry David commersul. Which one was that? I'm forgetting.
I saw it.
He was like playing a different bunch of characters.
That was good. I thought that was good. Yeah. Larry David is growing on me.
I swear, you just haven't seen enough Curb, man. Because Curb is. There's so many episodes that are just fucking hilarious, man.
And there are bits in these episodes that are hilarious, but as a whole, the 30-minute show doesn't hold up for me because it's the same fucking premise. Larry David is going to say something stupid, and that's the thread throughout the show is how stupid he is and the stupid situations he gets into, that he says, and so forth. and that's cool. But man, it's like, all right, And now, who's JB Smoove?
Yes, he plays Leon.
He should be the star of the show. This
And
guy,
he didn't even come on board to season 6.
exactly. When he came on board, I said, all right, this is a great fresh breath of fresh air. This guy is hilarious. I'd love to see that guy do his own show.
Yeah, the way season 6 ended was so funny because he and Cheryl Hines in the show, his wife at the time, they split up during that season, and he was married or with Loretta Black, Leon's sister, which was played by Vivica A. Fox.
Mm-hmm.
So, and of course, Larry made the joke. He's like, you being Black with the last name Black, it's kind of odd. Wouldn't it be like me if I was Larry Jew? And of course, they were pissed off about it. But at the very end of the way that season ended, they did a flash, like a picture, and it was a Christmas card, and it said "Merry Christmas from Larry and the Blacks," because their last name was Black, but everyone in the photo is Black but Larry. So it's so fucking funny.
There are great fits to that show. They're definitely great. All right. Any other commercials that you saw and you were like, they spent $7 million to put this on TV?
The one that I thought was so weird was in the first quarter, I think, and it seemed like it was a 60. So it's probably like fucking 6 million or something.
Yeah.
It just showed this barcode.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Bouncing around the screen, nothing else. And then it shows at the end whatever website, and that was that.
Mm-hmm. That's
Do
it.
you remember that spot?
I remember it, and it was the barcode was changing colors and was bouncing around like the old Atari ball on that game.
Oh.
Yeah, and I saw a tweet about it. I think it was Ken Fang who does the AA team here at the Barroom Network. I think he tweeted out saying, "I wonder how many people are holding their phones up to their TV sets right now." Rakeem says that was Coinbase. It was for some cryptocurrency thing, which, by the way, I still don't understand what the fuck cryptocurrency is.
Cryptocurrency, exchange app. You can buy and sell cryptocurrency on Coinbase.
Yeah, that was an odd commercial, but I'm sure it appealed to people who know about crypto. So it is what it is.
Cryptocurrency seem like something out of a David Cronenberg movie? It's like stuff you got a mind for it. It's like a sequence of all these like dream-like numbers.
Like it's probably breaking the law or
That's
something.
Good, too. I agree with you. What'd you say, Dan?
It feels sinister. It feels like it's like somehow circumventing the law.
Yeah, it feels like it's circumventing American currency, which I have all my wealth is tied into American currency. Am I doing something bad here? So I don't know. I have to do some research into it. But you know what? I'll let my wife do that. She understands that shit a lot better than me.
The Super Bowl, I could tell you the way I know that the Rams would probably win this game is when the line was first set for this game, the money line for the Rams was minus 190, and usually like for -4, -4.5, it's usually like minus 220. So you knew that like the book set that out there, and all the heavies hit that number, just Rams to win. Boom, they'll lay 10,000 to win, 5,100, and and also the during that game, it looked like the Rams pull away from it until Odell Beckham Jr. went down with that knee injury. Then the Bengals were able to get back into the game, but the Bengals, this was the same script that they had followed all playoff, was falling behind in the first half. They got behind, and then they were able to climb back into it. It made it a really good game, but I think if Beckham Jr. had stayed in the game, it wouldn't have been very close. I think the Rams would have covered, but the situation was perfect for you to play both sides, like the Rams to win, Bengals to cover. You could have made two separate bets and cleaned up. I didn't play Rams to win. I knew Rams would win. I wasn't sure they'd cover. That was the thing. And the Rams minus 190 is like too juicy for me. I'm not gonna spend $100 to win. 90 or whatever, for 55 bucks. So yeah, I thought it was a little juicy. I played Bengals plus 4.5. That happened to be the right play. But Cooper Kupp, 2 touchdowns. T. Higgins, 2 touchdowns. That was nice if you had those props.
Yeah, I had fucking Jefferson winning the prop. Little did I know that he was having a baby. His wife was having a baby the night before. That, his head clearly wasn't in the game. He had opportunities, but it didn't happen.
I had Joe Mixon over 24 receiving yards. He had 5 catches. You know how many yards he had?
No.
He had 1 yard.
Oh, my God.
I thought that was a pretty good bet, too. Five catches. Usually you figure he's going to get 25 yards on 5 catches. He didn't have 2 yards. The Rams just shut down.
You and I talked about Joe Burrow, because you pointed out to me he had like 11.5 rushing yards. I said, that's a fucking sure thing. He's going to be running away from that pass rush. He didn't get that fucking 11 yards.
He ran one time. That was it. I think he got 4 yards or something. But,
Historically, if you don't mind me interjecting,
please.
I said this a little bit earlier, but it makes me think of when I was trying to compare it to another game, and you may or may not remember it, but this Dallas-Pittsburgh Super Bowl 10, the game where Lynn Swann is MVP. Dallas is ahead 10-7 virtually the entire game until the fourth quarter. And it felt like, and even in that post game, when Brent's on and they have actually Walter Cronkite made an appearance, the prevailing theme of that post game was like, man, Landry kind of set on this lead a little bit too early. And that made me think of that with the Cincinnati thing, because that was my opinion starting in the third quarter. It's like, ooh, they've gone too conservative. And I really think that when they're sitting in the office, and I'm sure they already have, they'll have to kick each other thinking, man, we blew this because this game was ours. So I think if they keep the gas going, man, that game is theirs. They had momentum and everything, and they just shut it down too soon. I'm just so glad it wasn't us in that regard, because I know how bad I felt and still feel from 15 years ago after losing that game to the Colts and having a 14-6 lead. At least it wasn't us that lost some of these playoff games this year. In the playoffs, you'd be so mad if some of these calls were the Bears, like we've talked about before. Like, I can't believe this didn't happen to the Bears, like the thing in Dallas.
I got to tell you that Super Bowl game, to me, before the 2-minute warning, I said to myself, this has actually been one of the better officiated games. Yeah, they missed the calls. At that point, I was complaining about the Jalen Ramsey missed call in the face mask. Yeah. But for the most part, I thought it was a very well-called game. And those officials, I got to do a little research and find their names so I can put them in my memory bank. I thought they should be commended. I thought, John is agreeing. Do you disagree, Dan?
No, they gave the Rams like 4 first downs in that last drive, but Cincinnati had their chances, and they got the ball back too. I do think the officiating seemed a little skewed on that last drive, but I mean the Bengals still got a chance, and they turned it over on downs.
They were letting them play, then they tightened it up. The officials in the fourth quarter, but this comment right here made a huge difference because
the missed extra point. Yeah,
the missed extra point. Vegas won a lot of money on that missed extra point because all the people who had Rams -4, that would have been a push, and they would have had to, they would have gotten their money back on their bet. But that missed extra point, all the people that had Rams minus the points lost. So all in all, the books had a good weekend.
Mo Bierman has an interesting question. He says, asking for a friend, I think he's asking for himself. If Joe Burrow wasn't deemed Joe Cool and his name was Grossman, he would be getting crucified. It's not a question, it's a statement. Do you agree with that, Dan?
Well, I don't know if he's the reason they lost the game, though. I mean, he had a bad knee injury and came back to even miss a series.
Dan's right.
It's not like he was throwing like copious amounts of interceptions or something. I mean, Rex had a far worse Super Bowl than Joe Burrow.
Yeah,
against the Colts.
The plan.
Had an awful game in Miami.
Yeah, PJ says it was a good officiated game because they didn't make many calls until the fourth quarter. That's a good point, PJ.
Yeah, that was by design.
Yeah,
but to use it like a basketball analogy, like in an NBA game, you got to see how the officials are going to call it, right? Are they going to give the players a little leeway and stuff? You can't really call it one way until the fourth quarter, though. I mean, you can't. You know what I'm saying? It's more prevalent in the NBA,
right?
But to me, to call it a certain way until the team has their last opportunity, which the Rams did, their one last shot. Okay, well now we're going to start throwing flags.
Mm-hmm.
We've called it a certain way until now, I think. But either way, the Rams deserved it. The Bengals had their shot.
Swanky says, "Damn, I will never get over the Bears Colts Super Bowl. I don't even like talking about it."
I feel you, man. Yeah. I do. Like I said, the Bears had a 14-6 lead, and I feel like we should have won. And I honestly believe
opening kickoff
if they pull Rex and put Greasy in the second half, we win.
Yeah.
Dan, I want to ask you a question. Were you rooting for the Rams or Bengals, or didn't care?
I was rooting for the Bengals, but okay. I like Matthew Stafford, so I'm happy for Stafford.
All right. So, the Rams, were built to win this year. They put this team. They kind of bought the Super Bowl victory, by buying these expensive players, trading away their future. But do you kind of feel like it's another LA team buying a championship? You had the Lakers. You had the Dodgers putting together these super teams. Did it come off at all like that for you?
I guess you could make that distinction, but I know a Rams fan, and I will give her full credit. The reason she became a Rams fan was because she's from here, West Virginia. She went to WVU, and she was there when Mark Bulger, if you remember Mark Bulger, was the West Virginia quarterback. So he went to the Rams. So she became a Rams fan because she went to West Virginia. And like I said, Bulger was the guy that she liked. So she's been a loyal Rams fan all these years because of Bulger, and she kept with the Rams. She gets a Sunday ticket. She watches every game. So from Abigail's perspective, she doesn't give a fuck how they got it. She just feels like, oh, my God, this is what I've dreamt about. So putting myself in her shoes, that's the way I would feel. If we got this, fuck it, we got it, man.
By the way, Bulger was one of the 6 quarterbacks chosen ahead of Tom Brady in that draft.
Well, Bulger had a decent career, though.
He did. I mean, he played in a great offense, so it was hard to get, for him not to have at least a decent career. But, yeah, he did. He replaced Kurt Warner.
Yeah, and that shows you what kind of talent or what kind of man Kurt Warner is, because if you recall, his last season in LA was 03 or St. Louis. I'm sorry, the St. Louis Rams, and Mike Martz at some point in their playoff game was like, "Well, I'm going to turn to Kurt now," because they were losing or what have you. I think against Carolina. And Warner told him, which would end up being his last game with the Rams, he's like, "Look, I'll go in. I want to play. But for the future of this team, the future of this team is Mark Bulger. You have to stick with him right now."
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he said, "I will go in, but you're doing a disservice to your team by pulling him."
Mm-hmm.
What fucking guy has what a great guy Warner is what I'm saying. Who says that?
Yeah. No, he is a great guy. He is a great guy.
Conversely, you remember that game in the late 70s, Aldo, that was called the Mud Bowl between the Rams and the Vikings?
I don't recall, no.
Well, you should look that up, and at some point, there's just a massive amount of mud. And it ended up being Joe Namath's last game, but Pat Hayden is playing. And Namath has said this in hindsight that, what's his name? He coached in Buffalo. Chuck Knox. He said Chuck Knox looked at him as if to say, "We need you. Can you go in?" Because he's on the roster. This is why we brought you here, like to be Joe Namath. And he basically cowered away and didn't want to go into the game, and Knox saw it.
Wow.
And he said in hindsight, like he regretted that, like he should have stepped up and tried one more time, but he knew at that moment he was done. He was never going to play again, and he didn't want to go in that game. All that mud and shit, he didn't want any part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a fucking coward. Hey, Broadway Kobe has a great point here, and I remember Tooch and I went to have our fantasy football draft over at Soldier Field, and we were talking to Alex Brown, who was there as a kind of ambassador, hosting the fantasy football.
He wouldn't leave when he came into our skybox.
And he wouldn't leave.
He overstayed. He was
when
wasted.
we first met him, we got there at 11 a.m.
Yeah, we're like, this is awesome. I'm talking to Alex Brown.
Yeah.
And he was starting to get a little lit.
Right. Well, I think he was lit even before we got there, because he was there at the very start, and you could tell he came over to us. He had a drink in his hand, and it was not beer.
Yeah.
And so we started asking him questions, and he was very effusive, just talking. And one of the things that we brought up was when Thomas Jones was on the old 100 Proof show, and Thomas talked about how emotional he got when he was taken out of the game, and then Cedric Benson fumbles and so forth. Yeah. I brought that up to Alex to get his reaction, and Alex said, yeah, I understand how he feels, but you know what? We lost that game, the defense. How could we give up all those yards to guys like Adai? That's what he said.
Yeah, and Dominic Rhodes.
I wish I was recording.
Peyton Manning had one throw the whole game when Reggie Wayne, I think it was Danielle Manning's fault on the coverage where Reggie Wayne caught a touchdown. Mm-hmm. And the rest of the day, he just threw screen passes. And, of course, he got MVP because Waterhead was everyone's favorite fucking quarter. Oh, the sheriff, oh, Peyton. Just fuck him, man. Fuck that guy. He was allegedly, and I will believe it, on HGH, and no one cared. Look at the size of his fucking head. But, yeah, we have to vilify Barry Bonds, though.
Back to Barry Bonds.
I wonder what
I just sent you a picture from the North Pole, Aldo. You have to see it.
All right. On my messages?
Yeah, just your text. Just look at it.
Okay.
This was a playoff game, and this was in L.A. at the Coliseum.
Mm-hmm.
It was raining in Los Angeles.
That is amazing. I'll share this with the audience in a second. Go ahead, Tutu.
Yeah, Namath was like, I don't want in this game.
Does anyone know what Mike Martz is doing these days? I was wondering. I feel like he's somewhere eating a big greasy bucket of chicken. You know, he got fat towards the end of his coaching career.
That's right. Yeah, Martz went on to coach a couple of other places, right? And never had the success he had with the Rams. I mean, that team, you talk about strike and go. They made these picks with, the wide receivers that Isaac Bruce and what was the name of the other
guy? Torrey Holt.
Oh, my gosh.
Receivers.
Those guys,
and Ricky Prohl, former Bear.
Yeah, Ricky Prohl, who was very valuable to them. Yeah, so I think that had a lot of that was a big reason for Mike Martz's success. And I wanted him to come here.
Well, Vermeil was the coach when they won the Super Bowl.
That's right.
Actually.
And congratulations to Dick Vermeil. Here's that picture that Dan just sent me.
The Mud Bowl, yeah.
Yeah, wow, man. I'm telling you, that is mud. Jeez.
That's a playoff game. Minnesota won this game. And like I said, Namath in hindsight has said, I should have gone in, but I didn't want any part of that. And I knew I was done.
Wow. Yeah. Can't blame him. Although some of the most fun times I've had as a kid was playing in conditions like that, and coming home and getting beaten by my mom. You wore your jeans out there. You ruined them and stuff. Oh, Mom, I had a good fun. Don't hit me, Mom. Anyway, guys, why don't we get on to the media sound bites. It's only 12 and a half minutes long, and there's a bunch of topics on here we can discuss. It's a potpourri of stuff. There is no theme here. And if at any point you want me to stop it, let me know. Here it goes.
It's supposed to be a celebration of Devin Hester, the greatest return man.
Yeah, the first two on the reel here are people talking about Devin Hester not being elected to the Hall of Fame, which is something I want to talk about on the other end of this.
Of all time. And when you looked at this class, when you looked at the first-time eligible players, and I think it came down to Devin Hester, DeMarcus Ware, as first-time guys with the possibility of getting into the Hall of Fame. Last year we had Peyton Manning, we had Charles Woodson, Calvin Johnson, automatic people. And if Devin Hester had been in a class like that, I would have understood some of the reservations. But to me, I think it's kind of misguided to not have Devin Hester go into this class. And I know that Hall of Fame voters always like to celebrate their own self-importance, to kind of feel like they are better than the players who actually played the game and be like, oh, no. You can't be a first ballot Hall of Famer. You got to wait. Listen, you're either a Hall of Famer or you are not. Devin Hester is either the greatest of all time or he is not. He is certainly the greatest of all time. Nobody, as a return man, has done more to damage, to disrupt, to ruin games and game plans like Devin Hester. Now, we can sit there and, we can argue about like, well, somebody had this many touchdowns or that. None of that matters. Devin Hester, 18, 20 touchdowns, I forget what it is, not important right now. Obviously, those numbers are going to be a little bit skewed because at some point, special teams coordinators and head coaches stopped kicking him the ball. And that is really one of the things that we don't talk about enough, that with the Bears teams of that era, how much of an influence he was over opposing teams' game plans.
Last night we were at the Pro Football Hall of Fame press conference, hoping to see Devin Hester there.
Yeah,
and he didn't make it. I think it's probably more a matter of when rather than if with him.
I agree.
But what do you think about his candidacy to get into the Hall of Fame as a specialist?
I think there's no doubt that he'll be a Hall of Famer one day. I just think first ballot Hall of Famers are pretty rare. And I think especially a first ballot special teams Hall of Famer, it would be like really, really rare. And so I think that would be difficult, but he's definitely going to be a Hall of Famer. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And just when, and it's probably going to be pretty soon. I don't think you'll have to wait too long. But there was other guys in the queue, and there were other guys that have waited a while, and and that's a process. I was very fortunate, to get in on the senior side, and the whole kind of eligibility thing. Mine ran out, but I only waited as a senior for 2 years. I was lucky. The process was a little bit different, but it's just hard. I remember when Dan Marino talked to me one time and just talked about the process. I think he was preparing me for not to get in. Because that's how difficult it is to get in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Well, even like Dan Hampton had to wait too long.
Richard had to wait. Yeah, everybody. And you know what? And here's the other thing. The Hall of Fame, there's no difference between a first ballot Hall of Famer and all the other Hall of Famers, right? It's just a designation that people, you guys and other people give to them. But the Hall of Fame has no special recognition for first ballot Hall of Famers. It's just, I think there's some guys feel like their career has warranted a selection that quick. I don't know. I mean, look at baseball. I mean, guys wait a long time for baseball, and you would think just with their numbers they would get in because they put in so few guys every year. So I mean, it'll be a process, but I have no doubt that Devin will be a Hall of Famer pretty soon.
Yeah. Let's stop it right there and talk about this topic before we go on to some of the other ones.
Guys, I've got a comment already.
Please go ahead.
As much as I wanted Devin in, as much as I think he deserved to be in, just full context. I remember seeing NFL Films footage with John Madden talking to Cliff Branch, and both of them agreeing that Cliff deserved to make it. And John told Cliff, he said, "Be patient. You're going to make it. You are a great player. And when you make it, I'm going to induct you. I'm going to be there to induct you. You're a Hall of Famer. I believe in you. Be patient." And Cliff Branch got in the Hall of Fame this year. Guess what? Cliff's dead.
Yep.
And John Madden's dead too.
Yep.
So Madden didn't get to give him his induction. Devin Hester's going to get his day, hopefully, and it looks like likely he'll be alive at least, and he's not going to be fucked around like Cliff Branch was. So that's the only context I can say is that, I mean, because that's so sad in hindsight, because Cliff deserved it, and then Madden's gone too. Hester obviously deserved it, and I know I'm going to piss some people off. I think he deserved it more than even Urlacher.
I agree with you. But please, Tooch, share your thoughts.
I think Adam Rank said it all for me. If you're the greatest at one thing, one position, and Devin Hester was the greatest kick returner of all time, in my opinion. I mean, you could maybe make an argument for someone like Eric Metcalf, who had a ton of touchdowns, kick returns and punt returns, but Devin Hester was best I've ever seen. He's the greatest kick returner of all time. He should be in the Hall of Fame. That's
which was the argument for so many years for Raymond Guy. because they were like, oh man, no punter can make it, right? But everybody said, no, Ray Guy was the best of his entire, like, he was the best of the position ever. And it took him forever, but he made it. But based upon that argument that he was the best punter for like 15 years, you know, just over and over and over. So that argument holding water, I agree with Tooch saying that Hester was the best at the position, and the statistics bear that out.
Yeah, I feel like Jimbo, who I respect enormously, was totally wrong with his, you know, be patient kind of approach to this. You know, you guys make a big deal out of the first ballot. He deserves a first ballot, and then so many other people deserve first ballots. But keeping it to Hester, the guy was the best at what he did. When games started, that he was the guy the announcers were talking about before the opening kickoff. He was the guy that they were talking about at halftime. He was the guy that they were talking about after the game, whether he had a great kickoff return or whether he didn't. He was a special player, and he should have been acknowledged on that very first ballot. I think the first ballot does matter. I think it sends a signal that this guy, it's a no-brainer. He should go in. There are going to be guys when Brady retires, and I don't want to compare Hester to Brady, but I guess maybe I am. But when Brady retires, he's going to be a first ballot guy. Manning, first ballot guy. Those guys deserve it for their positions, right? Hester deserves it for his position, and the fact that special teams, like Dan said about Ray Guy, special teams have long been under-recognized by the Hall is, to me, atrocious. They should not do that to a very special part of the game, the part of the game that starts games and many times determines the outcome of a game.
I sent you the stats too. I don't know if you saw this text or not, because I sent you a bunch of shit, but it actually stole it from Adam Hogue.
Yeah, I saw that.
Which was comparing Richard Seymour's statistics to Mongo McMichael's, and Steve McMichael's stats are like quadruple Richard Seymour's, and he's like, the one guy's not even considered for the Hall of Fame, and his statistics, like I said, like quadruple what Richard Seymour did in a previous era, no less.
It's funny that you're saying that, because Tooch just put up a Foster Covers chat room comment question. Dan, Hester should be in. Mongo, look at his numbers, defensive tackle. Didn't he lead the Bears in sacks 2 or 3 seasons, Dan?
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't know either.
At least one season.
He did one season.
He had like 17 sacks one season, or 16 sacks.
Mongo?
I think so.
No,
I don't think
never
so.
had that.
I mean, I love Mongo, but I don't think Mongo had 17 sacks. Richard Dent did.
Yeah, let me. I'll look at that real quickly, but yeah, I don't know why this is even an issue with Hester, and he definitely should have been a first ballot guy.
He should have been in over Richard Seymour.
Right.
Even if Steve McMichael isn't, like, he deserved it more than Richard Seymour.
Totally.
Maybe my Packer bias, maybe over Leroy Butler.
Excuse me. Totally. Now, sacks. Oh my God. In 1984, Steve McMichael had 10 sacks. Okay, let me go back. 1983, 8.5 sacks. 1984, 10 sacks. 85, 8 sacks. 86, 8 sacks. 87, 7 sacks. 88, 11.5 sacks.
Yeah.
1989, 7.5. 1990, 4 sacks. 1991, 9 sacks. 1992, 10.5 sacks. Holy shit, I didn't know he had all these sacks. I don't remember that. That to me makes Mongo qualified for the next ballot, and we should start a hashtag Mongo for the Hall of Fame.
Well, the Adam Hogue was kind of doing that.
Oh man.
And he, like I said, he sent the comparison stats between Seymour and Mongo, and he's like, yeah, look at these stats, and one of them's not even considered as a Hall of Famer.
That is wild. That is fucking wild. Well, speaking of Hall of Famers, we're going to resume our media stuff with Adam Hogue talking to Mr. Richard Dick Butler.
This from another team, friend of mine said that, Justin Fields I think is the answer for the Bears at quarterback. The only problem, they didn't coach him from the day he stepped on the field at training camp to the last game. They never coached him up. And I think that's a tragedy. So I'm glad they got some new people in there, and maybe they'll start working and teach the kid something and take advantage of his abilities, along with getting somebody up front so he doesn't get killed.
Dick, I'm down here at the Super Bowl, and that seems to be a thought that a lot of people have, Justin Fields, everybody likes him, and they just don't think that he was coached well as a rookie. How does that happen? Like, how do you that's the hard thing, and I was there during the season. How do you get an answer like that you feel so strongly about, and then you just roll Andy Dalton out there and kind of push him to the side? It's hard to understand. That's what I'm saying. The whole deal was so frustrating. Okay, we got the coach under Andy Reid, and they look what they did with Patrick Mahomes. This guy, it's not the same guy. The coach. I mean, come on. I mean, if he was, I don't think he had anything to do with the success of Patrick Mahomes, to tell you the truth. But how can you get away without teaching and coaching? That's what happens when you get to this level. You proved yourself physically and everything else that you're capable of reaching the pros. Now we're going to be honed in by really guys who know the business and the inside of the business to help you. But maybe because of the lack up front, somebody told me, he said, well, they're going to play this kid, early in the season. I said, you know what? The kid's going to get hurt because that offensive line is like paper. You're letting that kid out there. You're hanging him out to dry, in my estimation. And I got so pissed during the year. It's just guys miss a block and they're right there helping the quarterback out. Give me a break. I'd take my hand if I was him and get out of here. Kick him in the ass. I mean, really. Oh, really?
It's not just that they got the quarterback right. I wonder if philosophically they did something that, look, it's a new regime now for the Bears, so I'm not going to hold them accountable for what happened. But they also kind of turned things over to Joe Burrow when he walked in the door. It wasn't just, hey, here's a guy that can compete for a job. It's, no. Yes. He's our quarterback, period.
100%. Yes, you could not. You're so right when you say that. He was their guy. We were going to ride it out with him. There's not even a conversation. They're not running around signing Andy Dalton or, whatever. And I think that it's a year late, but that's what's going to happen with Luke Getsy and Matt Eberflus with Justin Fields. I think that's what they're going to do. I think they're going to treat him like an actual franchise quarterback, and they are going to design the offense around him.
You even have him being in the room for, hey, I know that we probably need help on the offensive line. Get me my guy, Jamar Chase, and we are going to make things happen.
Yeah. And, Justin Fields, Joe Burrow hadn't earned that by any means. He hadn't, he's a guy who's that early in his career, but none of these guys have. You have to, when you draft somebody this high, like they drafted Burrow, and I don't see hardly any difference between drafting Burrow and drafting Fields as far as the commitment you're making. You have to treat them like a franchise quarterback before they're actually a franchise quarterback, because they will dictate the next several years of your franchise, whether you like it or not, whether they're fantastic or whether they're terrible. That quarterback that you draft that high is going to dictate your future for the next several years. You have to treat them like they're a franchise quarterback. Obviously, that didn't happen with Justin Fields in year one.
Hold for a second here, Brad. When he looks at the Bengals and they get to the Super Bowl and frankly had a pretty good chance to win a Super Bowl, and they're there because of Joe Burrow and they're there because of Jamar Chase, and they were picking 5th overall, and certainly the Bears don't have a first-round pick, but they picked the wide receiver over Penei Sewell, the right tackle from Oregon, and they picked skill over strength, maybe the skill position player over the offensive lineman. As the Bears build this, do you think that with they try to surround Justin Fields with talent. How would they surround Justin Fields with a wide receiver first as a priority or an offensive tackle, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I posed that exact scenario to Ryan Poles after the introductory press conference, saying, you talk about building through the line. Are there parallels with what the Bengals accomplished? And the Bengals were just kind of rolling in the playoffs at that point. And what would you have done? And he would point blank said he would have taken the offensive tackle over the wide receiver because that's his belief in building out through the line. He would have gone with Sewell with that 5th overall pick and not added Jamar Chase to the mix. And it's interesting, and we'll be able to see how he attacks this thing because the Bears have needs in both areas. I mean, they've got the worst wide receiver outfit in the league right now. I can't imagine someone else is worse than the Bears when you look at what's under contract for 2022 and moving forward. And he's already talked about his goal of improving and upgrading the offensive line. So are you going to find a scenario where you've got an exact Jamar Chase and an exact Penei Sewell, and, oh, by the way, it's the Bears' turn to pick? I don't know that we're going to encounter that same scenario for Ryan Poles, and he admitted that if the player isn't there that you're really looking for, sometimes you have to turn to a different position, but he's got to get them significantly better in both areas because you just look at the embarrassment of riches that the Bengals have at the skill position outside of Joe Burrow and the pieces they've built around him. And yes, they have to improve the offensive line. He was sacked 7 times in that game. But if they want to get Justin Fields playing, they have got to get some talent around him, and they are completely bereft at this point.
Hub, I did not know that the Super Bowl MVP vote needed to be in by the 2-minute warning of the Super Bowl. I assume you've been to so many. I assume you did know that.
Well, they changed the way they vote. I guess it was about 5, 6, 7 years ago, Danny. It used to be as simple as 15 selected voters up in the press box, and then they added a fan component, and they're weighting it, and I'm not sure exactly how they're doing it right now.
I think it's 80-20. I think fans are 20 and press is 80.
So in order to be able to have the spotlight and do that immediately following the game, they need a little bit of lead time. And so I guess it's that much more impressive that Cooper Kupp won the award before that final drive was complete.
Well, right, because so Kupp's second touchdown happened after the 2-minute warning, and Aaron Donald dominated the last series of the game. So his run stop, the one-arm tackle, and the pressure on Burrow on the 4th down play, none of those 3 plays are factored into the MVP vote.
No, apparently not. And
we got to fix this system.
Well, yes and no. I mean, even if they were factored in, I still think they got it right. I'd be more concerned if they got it wrong. Aaron Donald was quiet for a good part of the game. Cooper Kupp hit a lull in the middle when they were double and triple covering him after Beckham went down, and then the number 2 tight end Blanton goes down. But on the front end and the back end, he was dominant, and so. You're right. It does lend itself to, well, there's no mistakes. It's a very subjective award, but it certainly lends itself to, this kind of discussion. And it would be nice to fix it, but then, what do? You're going to keep everybody on the field an extra 10, 15 minutes to get that award. So it's sketchy, but I'm not sure that there's going to be any dramatic move to change it.
There you go, gentlemen. Media highlights for this week. Guys, anything stand out to you that you want to comment on? Dan is probably taking a shit somewhere.
No, I'm here. I didn't want to talk over anybody.
Go ahead, Teach. Go ahead, Teach. Go ahead, Teach.
Nothing really stood out, I tell you. We're in this weird time right now between Super Bowl and draft, so it's a lot of just fluff for now, for me at least. I don't know if you
No
saw it.
way! Come on, I worked hard to find the best sound bites for us to talk about. Nothing stood out. What is wrong with you? I'll tell you what stood out to me is this whole philosophical question. The very first major acquisition that Ryan Poles has to make, is it going to be a specialty player, a guy like Jamar Chase or someone similar, a game-breaking wide receiver to complement Darnell Mooney, or is it going to be somebody to protect his back or another offensive lineman to protect them from these defensive tackles who are hungry for sacks? That, to me, is a huge topic of discussion for all of us and going to be for the Bears for the next couple of months until the draft.
That's this weird time we're in, but what stands out more to me, and you're absolutely right, but what stands out more to me is how bare the cupboard is. Ryan Pace left Ryan Poles with only 5 draft picks in his first draft. The salary cap is in terrible shape. I don't think Ryan Poles will be doing much in his first season. Ryan Poles was a former offensive lineman, so my lean there would be offensive lineman.
Mm-hmm.
In either free agency or the draft.
What'd you think, Dan?
I didn't think that was necessarily a valid comparison with Cincinnati because the Bears' first pick is going to be in the second round.
Number 39.
Yeah, and that pick was what, 5th?
Their pick was 5th, right? Jamar Chase.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily the same.
But you could get to number 39 and have that Sophie's choice. We got both of these guys rated about even. A wide receiver that we like for number 39 and an offensive lineman that we like for 39. What do you do? It's not going to be Jamar Chase and Penei Sewell, but it will be players, that you could say are comparable.
I think the Bears have, for the last almost 20 years, have just ignored their secondary, specifically the safety position, and their offensive line position for too long now.
Mm-hmm.
So if you tell me that the guy is going to go with someone that's considered a safe pick at offensive line, then I'll take it, but James Daniels and Cody Whitehair were drafted high too. And Cody's had a couple of good moments, but he's really fallen off. And I wouldn't be surprised if James Daniels is allowed to walk. And they were both high draft picks. So it's not a slam dunk either if we draft the lineman in the second round as proven by those other gentlemen. But I would go line.
Well, and let me expand this argument a little bit because James Daniels is going to ask for about $10 million. And so that is a huge investment in an offensive lineman who has not had consistency and an offensive lineman that you might have to move from right guard to center, which is his natural position, a position he played at Iowa. But when he played it in the NFL, it wasn't to at least Mitch Trubisky's liking. So, are you going to invest that kind of money in James Daniels? And then as a caveat to that, David Montgomery's on the last year of his contract, and the market value for David Montgomery is anywhere between $8 to $11 million for a running back of his status. That's a lot of money for those two players, or should you just start looking elsewhere?
I think that Daniels is probably gone.
Really?
And again, it's the Bears' fault in some situations because he and Cody Whitehair, much like Kyle Long, had to play multiple positions and never really got an opportunity to be comfortable. So part of that is the Bears doing a disservice to them. But having said that, I know he's young. I know that I wouldn't be necessarily disappointed if they did bring him back, but I think he's gone.
What do you think, Tooch? You think that the lineman from Iowa, your neck of the woods, is a goner?
Goodbye, James. Yeah,
I think he's too young to give up on. I really do. I hate the fact that we're going to have to pay him so much money, but I think the guy still has the chance. I mean, what is he, 23, 24 years old? Still have he has a chance to be an outstanding offensive lineman,
I don't know. I can say this, not to switch topics, but to switch topics. Super Bowl champion Leonard Floyd. about that?
Another Ryan Pace mistake. Gave up on a player too quickly. Didn't really. I mean, prior to that season, in Leonard Floyd's first season, Ryan Pace and the two press conferences where he talked about Leonard Floyd, he defended Leonard Floyd. He said, "You guys probably don't see all the things that he adds to our defense. The fact that he guards running backs, the fact that he can guard tight ends coming out of backfield, that the fact that he can play multiple positions." Those were all the things that he hyped up, and Ryan Pace was actually right about that. What they were disappointed in is that he did not have double-digit sacks, which is what they projected him. But you could have, if you would have been smart about the cap and not pay three quarterbacks, $30 million for nothing, you could have had Robert Quinn and Leonard Floyd and Khalil Mack, and that would have made the nucleus of a pass rush that would have taken over the league, and maybe we would have started to take over the NFC North on a consistent basis. 2018, we won it. Could have been 19, 20, and 21 if Ryan Pace would have stuck to his so-called conviction about Leonard Floyd. The fact that he gave up on a 25, 26-year-old outside linebacker with all that versatility was just plain fucking stupid.
And if you think about it, Pace gave up on Leonard Floyd, Adrian Amos, and Nick Kwiatkowski, all draft picks by the Bears in favor of, again, the mighty Quinn proved himself last year, but in favor of Robert Quinn and over, Leonard Floyd, Danny Trevathan over Nick Kwiatkowski, and then Clinton Dix, over Adrian Amos. So you let your own talent go, and as they say, you build through the draft.
Exactly. That's a great point. And I disagree with Art by Nike saying that Leonard Floyd is a role player, that he benefits playing with Aaron Donald. You know what? All the great players benefit from somebody else on the team. You can't do it all by yourself. You need, if you're an outside linebacker, an edge player, you need pressure from the middle so that you can eliminate some of the double teams that you face. You look at the history of football and you will see that all the great players, there was a Robin to their Batman. There was a, think of whatever the analogies are. Mo Bierman says they couldn't afford Leonard Floyd. You know what? They could have afforded. There's an old Mike McCarthy, not the terrible coach from the Dallas Cowboys, but the agent. He was on the Greg Gabriel show. McCarthy represents a lot of key players in the NFL and some coaches. And he says, and I believe him, totally believe him, if you want a player, you'll figure out a way to sign him. You will move around money. You might have to get rid of a player to open up some space and so forth. You can afford the player. It is possible. I totally agree with that. And it's not like Leonard Floyd in that after his fifth-year option was up, it's not like he was going to make $20 million that season. They could have constructed a contract that would have been actually cheaper than what the Rams are paying him now. I'm not a cap guru, but I really do believe that there were ways to keep Leonard Floyd.
Would you say the cap is in good shape, though, Aldo, after Ryan Pace
No,
managed it?
He comes from the New Orleans.
I'm just asking because
you're absolutely right. He comes from the New Orleans Saints school of cap management, and they're fucked, which is why Sean Payton says, all right, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
By the way, did I show this to you guys last time? I got my calendar, my Chicago Bears calendar, and among the players, February is Charles Leno. This is a 2022 calendar. 2022, and Charles Leno is the player. And the first month, January.
What the fuck?
Exactly. A-Rob, knowing that he's a free agent, they got him in January. And then if Charles Leno isn't the be-all for February, look at March. They got Anthony Miller.
Oh,
Jesus.
Anthony fucking Miller. So for the first 3 months, and then here's
who fucking put this calendar together? Don Burr?
That's good. Then they got Nick Foles for April. Nick fucking and Justin Fields is not on the calendar.
Wow. This is bullshit.
It's beyond bullshit, but you know what? I think it's
Can you get your money back?
Too.
Matt Forte and
I
Wally
would fucking
Chambers.
send that back to the Bears organization, asking for my money back.
Maybe Virginia did this. And she's
I like that big dick Nick Foles. He's got to be in the calendar.
Anthony is still on the team, isn't he? And Chuck.
After April, it starts to make sense, but the first 4 months is like, what the fuck? This is the 2022 calendar. They must have started printing this in 1986 or something.
They printed it during Club Dub years.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
I'm so
It's
glad
let's
that's
print
over
these into
with.
the future.
Oh my god, you're not a fan of Club Dub, right, Dan?
When it seemed organic, that was one thing.
Yeah.
But when you're like in the middle of a 6-game losing streak and still doing that shit like 3 years later, you know,
Mm-hmm.
come on, man.
I agree. I agree, but you know, I'll never forget when Shane Marsaw brought it up to, I think it was Josh Woods, and Josh kind of chastised Shane, saying, "That's our party. It's not for the public. You know, we win a game and we have a 10-15 minute party celebrating our victory. So I really, you know, you guys really shouldn't be concerned with it." And I thought that was a good response.
My response to that is I'll use Carmen DeFalco. Who is Josh Woods? I heard Carmen said that.
Yeah.
By the
He's
way,
like, we didn't know who we've never heard of Josh Woods. Who is this? Like,
by the way, did you see what Joel Bunue said on Instagram, that Matt Nagy never gave him a chance to be a starting inside linebacker, and that he feels he can be a starter in this league? And I'm just throwing that out. Santucci has got a grimace.
No, the same thing was said about, like, they moved Dieter Eisland to center.
Yeah.
You know, and they never gave him a chance to play, you know, to play over Sam Mustipher, who's awful. You know, that's the thing with Nagy. People never got chances. You know, there's no, if you were playing bad, there was no repercussions like benching, nothing. No, another guy to take over. You know, it was business as usual. It was like Nagy at the end.
Mitchell Trubisky.
Yeah. He didn't coach, like Dick Buckus said in that video. There was no coaching of players under Nagy. You know, there was no teaching. You know, I guess that's what stood out for me the most of the sound bites. But what things that are starting to come out now, I think there was a story. Allen Robinson says he was sabotaged by Matt Nagy this last season.
Right.
You know, that all the dirty laundry is being aired, you know,
Right.
after now that Nagy's gone. And, you know, you and I had talked a lot about this, Aldo, about how we thought, you know, all this stuff, the dirty laundry was always there. You know, it just never came out. You know, we talked about how the locker room, it was probably disgruntled, but players would say, "Oh no, you know, it's great," you know, and all this, and that's, you know, the face that they had to put on for the public. But the reality is that this club's in trouble. I think a few comments in the chat room were saying, you know, we don't have any cap space. We've only got 5 picks in the draft. But it's more than a 1-year rebuild for Ryan Poles. I kind of hate that. I keep, every time I say Ryan Poles, I want to say Ryan Pace.
I know,
because they're so fucking close. I know I'm going to accidentally say Ryan Pace.
Yeah,
accidentally one time, but
don't say Ryan. Just say Poles, and maybe that'll help.
Poles.
Yeah, that's what I've been telling myself. Don't use the
you
first.
See on the Bears YouTube channel and on their app, you know, there's interviews with Eberflus and Poles. They're asking him the dumbest questions. It's like, who's your favorite comic book character? Who gives a fuck? I don't care. You know, I don't want to care if you love fucking Popeye or Wolverine. Fuck it. I want to know about what you're fucking gonna do for the team.
Thank you.
You know, I forget, those Lawrence Creed or someone asking these fucking questions. I was like, come on, this is the weird part of the season where we're in between Super Bowl and draft, where all this fluff questions come out to, you know, Eberflus and Poles and I think Getsy. The 3 of them got like the same questions.
Right.
You know, it was
that's Lauren's job, is to kind of present the more, you know, outside of football portrayal of him.
Lawrence should
So
drive James Daniels out of town.
You know who I always really disliked
Who's that?
from the Bears website was Anthony Adams, former Bear player, but I was always like this
You don't like
sports
Spice
corny
Adams?
comedy.
You know what, Dan? I have to agree with you there. I mean, I think he's okay, but
He's
I think
funny.
he tries too hard to be funny, and some of the stuff just isn't to me. He's a great guy. He was a valued player. Cody says, you say Ryan.
If you say.
Oh, if you say Ryan Pace 3 times in a row, he still doesn't show up to speak to the media. Well done, Cody. But I agree with you, Dan. Some of the stuff, a lot of the stuff that Anthony Adams does is just not funny to me. He's a great guy, interesting personality and so forth. But to me, he's not as funny as a lot of people give him credit for.
Yeah, I think he's way overloved.
This is what I'm talking about. Where I said last week that there's no one to really grade Ryan Poles' performance, just like there was no one to grade Ryan Pace's performance. It's basically George and Ted who are left to grade whether Ryan Poles or Ryan Pace does a job. Ryan Pace was obviously left to his own devices. Now look at the horrible situation with no draft picks, a bad offensive line, no money to sign free agents. Not a lot of players under contract. I think Aldo, you said last week that there were only 28 players under contract.
Right.
We have to fill out a whole fucking roster. You need 25
Well,
at least.
the cap should go
Plus
up.
The cap is supposed to go up, fine. But we're still in bad shape. We've got Mack and Quinn and a bunch of players making, the majority or at least a large part of the cap space is devoted to a few of these players. And like, what's this? Foster said, we're still paying Charles Leno. So, I mean, it's terrible.
Yeah,
it's terrible. Yeah,
there's a mess that Ryan Pace left for these guys.
I think he failed math in school.
Yeah, definitely. I would love. I believe that the NFL should eventually become much more of a reality TV show, and what I mean by that is the interviews that they had with coaches and GM. I would pay whatever I pay for HBO. Whatever I pay for Showtime, whatever I pay for all this other fucking shit where I get this fucking huge ass bill every month, I would pay more to have that video available. I want to hear what these GMs and coaching candidates said during these interviews, because whoever walked in there and said, I'd like to start off by saying, Ryan Pace really fucked you guys. I mean, he spent your money like a fucking drunken Democrat sailor on leave.
To be a fly on the wall.
Way too much fucking money and got very little in return. If somebody would have walked in and said that, I would have immediately said, okay, he's a finalist.
Yeah,
he's a finalist for this job.
So would I. You and I would both be doing the same thing. The guy that fucking comes in and tells George and Ted how badly the last guy fucked him is the guy that would get the job.
Yes, and then if he adds on, the biggest mistake that Ryan Pace did, it wasn't the mismanagement of money, it was his hiring of coaches. Now I know that John Fox may have been pushed upon him, but when you guys let him make his own choice, Matt Nagy, you chose a guy who was going to come in here and run the offense, but really had no big time experience calling plays and was adamant about calling plays. It's like, look, this is not fucking video game.
Exactly.
Matt Nagy.
I'm convinced that the only reason Ryan Pace fucking hired Matt Nagy is because their wives got along. I've said this for years. The story came out that, Ryan Pace said our wives really got along. We went out to dinner. Who cares? The wives are not calling fucking plays. They're not. Or are they? Maybe they were. I don't know.
Please.
I still think. I'm not saying that your debate isn't worthy of airtime. Don't get me wrong. I just think, man, I take the opposite approach and say, let's give Ryan Poles an opportunity to fix the mess. The mess, man, let's turn the fucking page, man. And these guys are gone. I'm so glad Nagy and Pace are gone. We got what we wanted. Let's be fucking happy. 2022, let's go.
I understand that, but I like to complain. I've been married a long time.
Dan, Aldo and I have been watching the fucking Bears do the same fucking shit for years. And then now we hired another Ryan, we hired another fucking Matt.
For real, so.
Yeah, but Dan, you've been watching them over 35. Doesn't this aggravate you? I mean, you and I have had these talks that you feel like, you're devoting so much to this team and you may never witness them have a win a Super Bowl. And you talk to me about how upsetting that is for you.
Sure. But that's not to say that Ryan Poles and Eberflus aren't going to give us their best shot. I hope it ends up being a win.
We're just reflecting on the recent past. That's all.
But I'm just glad that Nagy and Pace are gone, especially Nagy.
But Dan,
all I can say is if you the negativity in me says more than likely I won't get my shot, but it's like if you just want to sit around and complain so much about it, then you can always bandwagon it and
we're not complaining, Dan. We are prognosticating in a negative way, perhaps.
But this is priceless. I'm watching the game on Sunday, and Dan is sending me text after text after text. 99% of them are negative.
Sunday, I didn't text you during the Super Bowl.
No. When the Bears are playing
during the season.
Yeah. When is fucking Khalil Mack going to make a play? This fucking Nagy, he sucks. And you're right with all your opinions, or most of your opinions. You're absolutely right. But you were playing that negative blame game during the season, and so we're doing it now in retrospect.
I just want to ask Dan if he doesn't. Do you believe in omens? Because do you think it's not a bad omen kind that we hired another Ryan P and a Matt? I mean, with the same structure. I mean, I'm just saying. I don't. It's kind of a bad sign.
Rock Davis says, "Yo, Dan, I'm with you. Let's go." All right, so let's go. Let's talk about the present. I've got some sound bites here from the new coordinators, and I got to tell you, I am fucking impressed with them, at least what they presented of themselves and their ideas at the press conference last week. So we didn't get a chance. I think this happened the day after we were on, which is why we didn't talk about this last week. So let me play a few sound bites from them, and then we can discuss how, why we should feel optimistic about this. Let me start with Luke Getsy and him talking about building an offense based on player strengths. What a fucking novelty. What a great idea. Too bad Matt Nagy never thought of this. This is Luke Getsy.
The beginning of this thing, when we tried to establish that identity, or, we're going to establish the culture first, but then we're going to dive into this identity, right? That's going to be driven by the personnel, the coaching staff, and we're going to become something. There's not one specific answer to that right now. We have to dive into what everybody does best, right? And it starts with the quarterback. Right. This is a quarterback-driven offense. So the things that the quarterback position does well, that's going to be the driver of who we are. And then we're going to marry that to what the other guys on the football field do well. I mean, that's the purpose of the offense coordinator, right? To dive into what the people do well, what they do best, and then build the offense around that.
Dan, when I hear that, Dan and John, when I hear that, I think back to the Bears in the way they treated Mitchell Trubisky. I'm not a big Mitchell Trubisky fan, but they did nothing. They did very little, I should say, to accommodate his strengths. They forced Mitchell Trubisky to play this Matt Nagy offense, which still nobody can define what exactly that fucking offense was.
He played better under Dowell Loggins, for God's sakes.
Yes. Good point. Good point. So
what I thought of immediately was that the game against the Chargers when Matt Nagy said, "Oh, you didn't bring me here to run the I formation."
Yeah, classic.
So I thought Luke was saying that we don't know what we're going to have yet, and when we figure that out, we'll play to their strengths.
And that's exactly right. He went at length of talking about this assessment. First and foremost, they want to build this culture. He talked about in his meeting that he had he talked about at the press conference that he had a meeting with the offensive coaching staff, and they talked about the philosophy. This is our offense. We're going to build it based on concepts. And then once we start evaluating the players that we have, we're going to take those concepts and fit them into player strengths. Let Luke Getsy talk more about that.
No, listen, the passion that I have for this game and the passion to take the reins was something that is just, it's deep inside me. I think, playing the quarterback position growing up and having that, being, the leader of the offense, playing it through college and then getting a couple opportunities, like you said, in the college level to take the reins of an offense and be the play caller. All of that stuff is just in me. It's what I love. It's the passion. And these last couple of years, Matt's been great up and Coach LaFleur has been great in giving us opportunities to do that in the preseason. And so those are just things once you touch it, man, you're just like, this is the passion that I have. It's not just whatever it can become after it. It really isn't. This is just the passion that I have to be able to have an opportunity to lead men and help guide this thing and be a part of something. I really don't view this thing as just going to be Luke Getsy's offense. It's what was mentioned before. This really isn't going to be that. Okay. This is going to be a collective group doing this together. That we're going to build something that's going to be our own. And so I just have a passion for being involved in that. I really do. And so I'm super excited about this opportunity, the group of men that we got together in this coaching staff. I mean, these men, they all bought into that. Like I laid it out for these guys on this offensive staff that this is the mindset that we want to have, that we want this thing to be ours. This isn't going to be somebody else's or a copycat of somebody else. This is going to be ours. Like we all have our experiences and we're going to put them together and we're going to build this thing together.
I love that. I fucking love that.
Yeah.
I want to have sex with him.
He's the guy I'm most excited about, to tell you the truth.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and I know that the word collaboration has become a dirty word here among Chicago football fans, but the way he is using that word and the way he's using that concept makes total sense to me. The way Ryan Pace used it was as an excuse. He was saying, John Fox and I never collaborated. I wanted Trubisky, he wanted Watson. I kept him in the dark on the draft as to who we were picking because I didn't want to get into an argument with him. He was afraid to get into an argument with his head coach on who they should draft. That to me, and I've said this on the show before, and I apologize for echoing it, he's a coward. Ryan Pace was a coward for taking that approach. Luke Getsy is immediately telling us that he is going to build an offense that is based on the collective wisdom of the staff that has been assembled and the talents of the players on the roster. You can't get better conceptual thinking than that. Absolutely not.
You just sold my point from 5 minutes ago.
I know I did.
I'm fucking excited about 2022.
You should
I'm
be.
so happy that Nagy's gone that I don't feel the need to be negative right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm Mr. Negative no, Mr. Negativity was Dan Wiederer. But during the game, like you said, I'm calling out Nagy's just awful play calling or like Khalil Mack, like just not earning his money and blah, blah, blah. But, but right now I'm happy, at least at the thought of, something good on the horizon.
Mm-hmm. Now, and of course, none of this means anything if they don't have the players, right? And so that's why Ryan Poles, this is his time of the year. He has got to build a fucking roster that, right now there's some 30 players under contract. So he's got to sign 60 players before camp. You go to camp with 90 guys. And he's got limited funds. Everybody talks about, they got $40 million in cap. No, that's not a lot of money when we're talking about there's so many starters you need to sign, and then you need to build some depth and so forth. So I hope, and one of the things that I am encouraged by, what I am confident, is that Ryan Pace did leave behind a pretty damn good scouting department. evidence of that are these guys that were picked up in the middle rounds, because that's where your scouts, your regional scouts, really shine. If they can come to you and say, hey, there's a wide receiver named Darnell Mooney that you really got to take a look at the tape on. Finding him, what was it, 4th or 5th round, Darnell Mooney? I mean, that is encouraging. Those guys are still here. And so hopefully they've got another great draft in them, because if they do, then they'll continue on helping Ryan Poles develop this team. If not, then it's bye-bye, and Ryan Poles will bring in his own people. Dan, you sound upset, man.
No, I'm very tired.
I know you are.
But no, I agree with you.
By the way, Dan, can you share that story about what the game that you were working on prior to our podcast? You were covering a game and the score was tied at the first quarter, a basketball game. It was tied.
Yeah. It was like 21-all, and then in the second half, it was like a 45-point deficit. It's just something unbelievable. Yeah.
Was Matt Nagy coaching the other team?
Exactly. But all jokes aside, even if you have inferior talent, think about it. Everyone said that 94 Bears had inferior talent, and we still made it to the second round of the playoffs. And Wani should have been coach of the year that year, and we upset Minnesota in the Metrodome after they had beaten us twice in the regular season, albeit once because of a Butler missed field goal. But okay. But the bottom line is, even if you have, you're short on talent, if you have good coaches, you can still win with that. Sometimes you can coach them up, or like you have Matt Nagy when you have better talent than, but you can't coach at all and the team's not with you.
Mm-hmm. Very true. All right, let's listen to a little bit from our new defensive coordinator. Oh, no, I got one more Getsy soundbite that I would love to share with you guys. Deion Miller asked Getsy, know that you probably don't know Justin Fields very well, but what can you tell us about him? And Getsy shared this.
I got an opportunity to interview him during the combine stuff last year, that process. Super impressed with the man, the person. You can feel the determination, the will inside of him as he was communicating to me. He was super sharp with what they did at Ohio State. And then just a brief conversation that we were able to have together here the other day, the same exact thing just jumped back out at me again. So I'm looking forward to getting to know him deeper, obviously, but I'm very optimistic about the type of person that he is. And I think the will and the desire that he wants to be a great leader too. So I think it's a really cool opportunity with a young guy who I think has a really good drive.
I'm encouraged by how he described his relationship with Justin Fields. After that first press conference with Poles and Eberflus, we talked then about how it seemed like, man, they weren't very effusive with their praise of Justin Fields. I wonder if they really like him. Well, Luke Getsy made it pretty obvious. They have really high hopes for Justin Fields.
I do wish that in hindsight that they would have said something, although Luke wasn't at that original press conference. I agree with your assessment. And, but I said it at the time, maybe the fact that Fields was there and in participating in that press conference was the Bears organization saying, hey, this is our guy. But they had a couple of times to wrap their arms around him with answers and didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So it is refreshing to hear the offensive coordinator say, no, fuck, this is our guy. I want to hear that.
Yep. And I'm fascinated by that whole process of, Justin Fields. We've seen what his talents are, and watching him at Ohio State, we know that he has great deep ball accuracy. We know that if he doesn't find a secondary receiver, that he can do some phenomenal things with his legs. We know that he can be pretty accurate with his passing. So building an offense around that skill set, to me, is going to be fascinating. Now we have to learn who's he going to be throwing the ball to other than Darnell Mooney, which we know he's got a great rapport with. That's encouraging. The whole Fields to Mooney if this thing works out correctly, I can see Darnell Mooney catching 85 plus passes in this upcoming season. But he needs that big, wide-winged wide receiver that Allen Robinson should have been last season. He needs that to complement Darnell Mooney, and then we need third and fourth wide receivers who've got speed to open things up. So again, Ryan Poles has some work to do. All right, guys, I got more. I got Alan Williams, a defensive coordinator. This is a question about his experience when he was at Minnesota. I kind of cut into the middle of it because I thought this was interesting.
I've had the chance to be in a few different systems. So now you're bringing to the experience that I had in that other team, and now you have the experience of different coverages, the experience of different fronts, the experience of different techniques, and then just the do-over. And I won't say exactly what I'd like to do over, but you learn from your mistakes. You learn the things that you did well, and you take those things and you put that in a bucket and you say, take these things forward. And then ultimately you try not to dwell on the past, and you move forward, and you try to be self-aware and evaluate yourself in a very in a systematic way without being too hard or too lenient. And you take those experiences and you try to improve.
Dan, I just realized it's 10:26 here in Chicago. That means you got 4 minutes left.
Yeah, I gotta go. I was thinking the same thing. But yeah, both the coordinators sound, they're saying things that I would want them to say.
What bums me out, Dan, is that we again neglected to get to our Super Bowl games that we have enjoyed watching in the past, the game. So I promise you we'll get to that on our next show. We've got 5 minutes left with you, Dan. Do you want to share anything? You want to talk about anything? And a movie that you watched, a woman that you had sex with?
It's the light turn on the light bulb.
There it is. Dan, tell us about what happened on your Valentine's Day date.
Yeah.
So I saw the you know me, I'm Mr. Romantic, so
yeah.
I watched the new Scream movie for Valentine's Day.
And did you make your scream after the movie?
I did get laid
yes
several times over the weekend.
Several times.
No
wonder I didn't get a text from you.
I was a little bit busy, I guess you could say. But yeah, it was a good weekend.
I can tell that you're into this woman because you're not sharing a lot of details about this.
Well, nothing is beyond early stages of just whatever, but the point is that I don't know her well enough to know what she once said or not said, that kind of thing. So, I don't know, I got laid and it was fun. I don't know what else to say about it.
I totally understand that we have to respect the woman's wishes, which is why, not wishes, but just respect her, period. Which is why we won't talk about it unless she wants to come on and share some details. But what I will say is I have fantasized about what you did all weekend. and it resulted in the biggest ejaculate of my life. So,
wow.
So you definitely have had an influence on my life, Dan.
Well, I had a good weekend. So you were
good. Yeah.
People in the chat room are saying, "Oh, that's why he's so tired."
Yeah,
it is in part because my sleep pattern got flipped over the weekend. I was up early multiple days, and that makes me so tired. So yeah, that is part of it.
What else got flipped? Were you flipped, and were you on the bottom?
During that, there was multiple times where I was on the bottom. Yeah, because they drive the car the best,
Yeah, but what I was wondering, were you on the bottom, ass up, tits to the bed?
No.
You ever been penetrated by a dildo, Dan?
Never, not once.
Never had a fantasy about it?
Nah, I don't really have a thing about dicks or something,
Oh, Tooch does.
I try to avoid that part of the body.
Well, unfortunately, gentlemen, I gotta go.
Oh man! Now you're going to work, right?
Yeah, yeah. Hey, before I go, I will say, have you seen the trailer for the Los Angeles Lakers early '80s called Winning Time on
Yes,
HBO?
it's a fabulous trailer. By the way, but before you go,
Riley.
people want to know was Scream good?
Yeah.
You know, it was. I didn't expect a whole lot, and the others are like all okay. I don't love them. I don't hate them. They're just kind of just okay. They're like Dick Geron. You can't really like love him as your coach, but he's okay. But the new one was as good as it possibly could have been. I would say arguably it was the best of the whole series.
Wow, that's good. When the first one came out, I said, wow, this is clever concept, well executed, good young actors and so forth. And the rest of them afterwards were entertaining, but they weren't anything out of the box. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this one to see if they've added anything, new twists and stuff like that. Did they? Can you share that?
Yeah,
with
I don't
me?
want to. Do you want? I don't want to give you spoilers. I can if you want.
Give me one spoiler that you will.
A big spoiler or not?
Something that
I will say this without telling you who.
Okay. Good.
One of the legendary, and not that they're legends, but within the context of the film, a legendary character of the series dies.
Oh wow!
I won't tell you who.
Wow! I hope it's Courtney Cock.
Courtney Cock.
That's what Howard Stern would call her.
Well, on that note, unfortunately, I gotta go.
All right, go drive carefully, save some lives, and you and I will be texting each other during the week. And I can't wait for next week's show where we're going to go in depth into some of our favorite Super Bowl games.
Sounds great to me.
Okay, brother.
Bye, Dan.
See you later. Be well. See you later.
And then there were two. John Santucci.
Yeah, although I got some bad news though.
Oh no, what happened?
So I was at work last week, and unfortunately they had some layoffs.
Oh no!
No, I'm still there, but it was because they're turning a bunch of magazines to digital only, and one of them, April will be the last issue of Entertainment Weekly, published print magazine.
Oh really?
So yeah, this is different. I've got a lot of work to do on at least for finishing this one up, shorthanded, and coming up with a better process for doing what I do in a digital environment. So there's no, loss of image quality or color.
Right. Well, I'm glad you still got a job. I am disappointed. Entertainment Weekly has been one of my all-time favorite magazines.
Yep.
For years. It helped me keep pace with what was happening in culture worldwide. When you get to be my age, you don't listen to the radio or not the radio, but you stay on top of contemporary music as much as I did when I was younger, and the same thing with movies and so forth. And so Entertainment Weekly, which was a weekly magazine, would arrive and I'd read it while I was taking a shit, and then I was on top of whatever was happening culturally. And then they moved it to a once a month publication. I was very disappointed, and I knew the day was going to come where that piece of paper that I almost wiped my ass with one time when I didn't have any toilet paper and I was reading it, and not because the publication was bad, but because I just needed some toilet paper. I almost wiped my ass with it, but I didn't. Nonetheless, it appears now that the publication now is headed towards the shitter.
Yeah, to answer Steven's question, I work for the world's largest magazine publisher, which is Meredith Corporation in Des Moines. We were recently bought by Dotdash, which I believe was the company that started Match.com. So a big digital, social media company bought our company, and they decided to go digital only on a bunch of titles. So, but I'm a quality control analyst.
Is asking, are you in graphic design?
Yeah, I was for a long time, graphic design, print media, publishing, advertising, marketing, bunch of stuff. Long career. I started this career in 94, I think, 93.
You're one of the best at it, man.
Thank you. Sorry, Aldo's way better than me, though, folks.
No fucking way.
Video and the design is just,
no way. I am a master of a lot. I'm a master
graphic
of
design. People are here. Aldo's up here.
Yeah,
for real.
No
For
way.
video and design. Yeah.
Once in a while, I'll come up with a good design, but the vast majority of my designs are like, this fucking looks like 1980s PowerPoint, Aldo. Yeah, I know. That's my inspiration. All right, I want to get back to Alan Williams at that press conference.
Yeah.
This was a really cool
Thanks for
soundbite.
telling me his name. I didn't know his name. I was
I
still
know.
like,
I know.
I was
Every time I say any of these names, there's a thought in my head saying, did I get it right? Did I get it right?
I was afraid to be like, Tooch, what do you think of the new defensive coordinator? Do you even know his name? I would have had to been, no, I fucking don't know his name. God damn it. What happened to Sean Desai?
One of the things that I'm really impressed of with Alan Williams and Luke Getsy is that both of these guys sound like they got it together. They sound so smart and confident in what they're saying. I find them very, very likable. It's the first time, in my opinion, that we've had an offensive and defensive coordinators that I am like saying, this is looking good. So Williams was asked about what kind of a stamp he wants to leave on this defense.
My stamp is going to be the way we run to the ball and the way we hustle. There it comes up again. That's going to be my stamp. But the true stamp is going to be to allow the players do what they do well. So, I may come in here and say, hey, I love zone coverage. And our guys may be phenomenal man coverage players. So, you know what? We're going to play man. And if I come in and I go, hey, we're going to be a 4 down, and I go, hey, an odd front is what we do best, or this guy two gaps the best, we're going to 2 gap. And so when ultimately we're going to play with, again, we're going to play hard, we're going to play smart, we're going to take the ball away. But there are many different ways of doing that. So what you'll see is the team that wins the Super Bowl, it has some different characteristics every year on offense and defense. There's no real one way to skin a cat. So it would be remiss if I just said, you know what, I'm bringing in my system and it's going to be my stamp and it's going to be my. Nope. That's not a good thing. It's going to be It's going to be our defense. It's going to be our decisions. It's going to be our guys. It's going to be a collaborative effort. And, I ultimately have to make a decision because I'm the defensive coordinator, but I'm making that decision based on what our guys do best. And so if you take the attributes of what your guys do best and you accentuate those qualities, you allow guys to do what they do best, the product is much better than sticking a round peg in a square hole, so to speak.
I love this guy. I mean, again, the philosophy, you play to your player, you coach to your player's strengths, right? So, I mean, how can you go wrong with that type of thinking?
Yeah, the last regime could have learned some things from this guy and Luke Getsy, just like all the things we've been telling them that the Bears should do. Mm-hmm. They're getting back to the loafs, which is great.
Love it.
The consequences and repercussions we talked about for players that that just not performing. Mm-hmm. And then Luke Getsy tells you the same things about how we want to use formations, to set up plays in the future down the line, and playing to players' strengths, which is something that like Nagy never did. It's like you said, Nagy was like a Madden player, Madden video game player that came in, and coaching was like a secondary job or responsibility for him. He just was here to call plays, because he loves Madden or whatever. He thought he was in a video game. He was a play calling junkie. He couldn't give it up even when people were telling him, you just focus on coaching part and let your offense. You have an offensive coordinator,
Yeah, so, I love the way you put that, play calling junkie, and I would add a pass play calling junkie. He just always wanted to throw the ball. By the way, Hair Bear wants to know. Wait a minute. Then what did Aldo wipe with?
I know.
There's no toilet paper. There's only Entertainment Weekly magazine. Well, the secret's out. I would either, if my wife was home, hey, honey, I need the toilet paper. And if she wasn't home and none of the kids were home, I would scramble to get the toilet paper from the closet, from the linen closet. That's true story. All right, I got one more soundbite from our man Alan Williams, and I think this is really important, because
his name is so forgettable. He's got to do something first, so before I remember his name, man. I'm telling you, it sounds like a movie composer. Who was the movie composer that did Star Wars? Wasn't that Alan Williams?
Yeah, it's like the name that is used by directors when they want their name off the credit. Alan
Smithy.
Exactly.
He doesn't want to be known. He wants to be an anonymous defensive coordinator.
That's right. Oh my gosh. Hopefully that doesn't. That's not true.
We know that's not true.
All right. So one of the stars of this defense, people who are talking about, I saw in the chat room earlier, what is Roquan Smith's trade value? Nothing. You're not going to trade Roquan Smith. He is one of the three key players of this defense that Eberflus and Williams are bringing to the team. It is that weak side linebacker. It is the tech three, the three tech defensive linemen who may or may not be on the roster. A lot of people are hoping it will be Bilal Nichols. And I think while he could play that position, he's not going to be Tommy Williams. He's not going to be Aaron Donald. We need somebody at that level to play that position. And so that's on post to find that guy. And then the third guy that they added, because of how offenses have changed over the last few years, it's not the middle linebacker or the free safety, it's the slot corner. And I agree with that so much. We are seeing Devontae Adams and DeAndre Hopkins and all of these star receivers lined up in the slot. And yes, you can move Jalen Johnson to move him around and so forth, but that's going to limit what you can do. You need a slot cornerback in this NFL that can guard the elite wide receivers, because that's going to be called for. So back to Alan Williams, he was asked about comparing Roquan Smith with the guy he coached at the weak inside linebacker with the Colts, Darius Leonard. So this is Alan Williams talking about Roquan Smith and Darius Leonard.
Yeah, production. Both guys are extremely productive. Both guys are athletic. Both guys, you can tell they like football by the way they play. When you look at the tape, you don't have to be a football aficionado to go, you know what? The way that dude plays, he likes ball. Roquan likes ball. Roquan loves ball. And when you have a guy that loves ball and you're as smart as he is, and I remember him coming out of the combine, even as a defensive backs coach, his reputation preceded him. So he was a guy that said, hey, he's quick twitch, he's fast, he's instinctive, he's a leader. So when you have a guy like that, that's a guy that you want in the middle of the field, and that's a guy that that you're looking forward to getting to know, that you're looking forward to coaching.
There you go.
He was on the Colts, I take it, right under Eberflus, or not?
That is correct. Darius Leonard, I was actually at the Senior Bowl when he played in that game, and he had a sensational game. I believe he was the defensive player of the game. DJ Shark was the offensive player of the game, who is a free agent this season, and I would love it if the Bears targeted DJ Shark. There's some concern about his health, and staying healthy. But the guy's got the tools. I think he would be a nice compliment to Darnell.
He's got size. He's like 6'4".
Right. And Darius Leonard was just shining, man. He was shining. And I remember talking to him, and they brought him out to talk to the media members. And I remember talking to him, and I said, dude, it looked like you were having such a good time out there. And I remember I talked to him twice, before the game and then after the game. Oh, your green screen just fell.
Yeah.
And before the game, I said, are you upset that you're not being allowed to blitz in the Senior Bowl? He goes, oh, man, I want to blitz. I want to get that quarterback and so forth. And then he had the phenomenal game. And so I sought him out, and I said, Darius, you didn't get a chance to blitz, but it's not like you needed it to show. And he was like, yeah, thanks, man, for remembering that. And he was just an outstanding player. That guy is a stud, and Roquan Smith can now, I think, ascend to that level of linebacker that is going to capture the adulation of the entire NFL community. Everybody wondered, why isn't Roquan Smith a Pro Bowler? Why wasn't he considered for the Pro Bowl? And actually he was. I think he was a third stringer on the Pro Bowl team. And so I think that this defensive coaching staff is going to really open up what Roquan can be. And it's going to be because of the position and because of the philosophy that these defensive coaches have. So I'm really excited about Roquan Smith, not just for 2022, but beyond, because I'm positive they're going to sign him to like a $100 million contract for 8-9 years. And he's going to be a stud for the Bears for a long, long time.
Yeah. Williams was on the Colts coaching staff too.
Yeah. Alan Williams was the
linebackers coach or something?
Dave Borgonzi was a linebackers coach. Okay. Williams was, I forgot what the title was. But yeah, Williams comes from that Colts school. And a lot of people are saying, well, look at the stats of the Colts. That defense, the Bears were ranked better. Don't go by that. You got to look at the tape. These stats can be very, very misleading about how good defenses are. You got to account for the fact, like the Bears defense is a perfect example. We know this Bears defense well. Do you think this Bears defense would have been ranked better statistically if they would have had an offense that kept them off the field? So there's all these nuances involved when you're evaluating things, and to just look at stats is not an advisable way. Broadway Kobe says he was a safeties coach. Thank you, Broadway.
Yeah.
Broadway Kobe, I think, is new to the scene here. I don't remember that moniker or remember seeing it often. So if you are a first timer, and anyone that's a first timer, welcome to the show. Stephen Nagishi says that Allen Williams was a defensive corner under Leslie Frazier in Minnesota. That is correct. That is absolutely correct. And his experience there, along with its work with Leonard, will be terrific.
That's right. Yeah. He said that first off. He said he was in Minnesota.
That's right. And he referred to it as that other team at one point during his soundbite. So I'm really encouraged by these two coordinators. I didn't get an opportunity to select a soundbite from our a new special teams coordinator, Hightower, but I did listen to a portion of his press conference, and he sounds equally impressive too. And I think that during that press conference, he basically said, special teams are as good as the players that you have. And that's true. When you're building a squad, sometimes you're going to select a player who is better at special teams than maybe a pass catcher or a guy that can play inside linebacker or whatever, because you just need good special teams players. They determine field position.
Steve Tasker on the Bills. Remember him? He was like an all-time Pro Bowl every year as a special team tackler.
Is that guy in the Hall of Fame? Because he should
know. He might, yeah.
Right?
He should be, yeah.
Go ahead.
So the special teams coach what's his name?
Hightower. I forgot his last name up, but I'll get it for you. Hold on a second.
See, that's a football name. You can remember that name. It's got a great football name, Hightower.
How about it?
God damn it.
Where is it? It's not Chris Tabor. He's gone. By the way, a lot of people were saying, Chris Tabor should have been re-signed. Chris Tabor became a good coach, special teams coach, these last couple of seasons. Those first seasons when he advocated for Chris Barkey to be part of the Bears, they didn't. There were times where the special teams players didn't know rules and so forth. So I'm not losing any sleep over the fact that Tabor is gone. Richard Hightower is the special teams coordinator. His first year as Dick Hightower. I love it.
That's a good Bears defensive name,
15 years of NFL coaching experience, including 5 as the special teams coordinator with Robbie Gould's San Francisco 49ers. So, all right. What else we got here? Let's see if we have questions that we can respond to. Anybody have a question for Tooch, whether it's gambling, whether it's Bears, whether it's cuisine in Iowa, fire away.
Yeah.
And we'll address
pork, this is the place to be.
Yeah. And Earl Martin says we need true wide receivers and cornerbacks. I totally agree. I mean, this roster is in such need of so many skill positions, but we've only got Darnell Mooney signed at wide receiver. You've got to find some really good value in free agency at that wide receiver position. And then at the cornerback position, the big thing is, can these coaches improve the play of Kindle Vildor? And he is a very, very important part of this defense. Thomas Graham is also another guy because he showed a lot of promise in those last 2-3 games that he played at the end of the season. But if a guy like Vildor, of a guy like Graham, you can go into the season and say, okay, they can start opposite Jalen Johnson or maybe even play that slot cornerback position. Duke Shelley is a guy that I don't have a lot of confidence in. But those guys are huge. I mean, they have got to look at the tape and determine whether those guys are guys you can depend on, because there's only so much money you've got to spend. There's only so many draft picks. So, draft and develop. Well, they didn't draft these guys, but hopefully they can develop at least one of those 3 cornerbacks that I mentioned. Okay, the factor, Tooch, any player from the draft that you feel we can land at 39 that can be an impactful player game 1? What do you say, Tooch?
Well, I'll tell you, I haven't studied a lot of draft stuff yet. I usually get into that, coming up like March, April.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still so busy with college basketball right now. My thing going on right now is I wake up in the middle of the night to pee, then I start handicapping the college basketball games for the next day.
Mm-hmm.
So from like 3 a.m. till I go to work at 8, I'm going over games and trying to find the best games to bet on, the edge there. But would be great if the Bears pulled like a Bengals type thing and got one of Justin Fields' wide receivers from Ohio State that could make an impact, from familiarity with that. And then I would not mind seeing them draft a tackle or center on the offensive line. I think Ryan Poles is going to put an emphasis on the offensive line, himself being an offensive lineman. And I think you got to start with center, man. I think if you can get the best center in the draft in the second round.
From Iowa, right? Isn't it?
I think he'll be gone, but boy, would that be great if they could. And solidify the offensive line, get a stud in there. You're paying him, you're not paying him, what you'd pay James Daniels,
right?
And you could probably get as good of quality out of him, for way less money, which is what you need to do. I think one of the posters in the chat room said, we're marginal cap space for next year.
Exactly.
It's going to be hard to do anything, and next year might be, a year where we aren't very good. The defense may be good.
Right. Because if you keep Quinn and Mack and they play all 17 games healthy, or the majority of those 17 games, I think that's huge. And you got Roquan.
That's a big if.
It really
they're
is.
old and they're injured,
It really is. And I'll tell you one thing about Alan Williams. He almost took offense. Hub Arkish asked him a question about, these guys are in the midlife of their careers. And Williams said, you make it sound like midlife is a bad thing. Midlife is the middle of your life. These guys still have a lot of great football, and with all the ways people can stay healthy and play long careers, I'm really happy with those guys. And so hopefully Williams' optimism about those guys and where they are age-wise is going to pay off. In terms of that question, PJ says, who would be a great wide receiver draft pick that can be had in the late second round? I'll tell you one name right now that Hair Bear posted. Where was it? Oh, Drake London, the USC wide receiver. This guy is 6'5", 215 pounds. A lot of the services have him ranked as a top 10 wide receiver in this draft. He will definitely be a second rounder. That size, that speed that he has, along with guys like George Pickens, the 6'3" wide receiver from Georgia, David Bell, the 6'2" wide receiver from Purdue. If you want to get a tall, big catch radius wide receiver, those are 3 names that should be available, at least one of them should be available when you're picking 39 in the second round, if that's the pick the Bears eventually end up with. Although I do think that there's a chance they may trade down to accumulate more picks. But if you can walk away with one of those three names, and Danny Shimon said it on the last draft on tap, any one of those three guys would be a great acquisition for the Chicago Bears. Just a philosophical question for you, Tooch. Given what we know about this offensive line, given, the little bit that we know about free agent offensive linemen, would you be okay if the Bears dedicated their second round draft pick to a wide receiver and not an offensive lineman?
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean you got to get Justin Fields some weapons,
right?
You saw the Bengals did it.
You got Mooney, and that's it. You got to get somebody.
Yeah, you probably have to address it in free agency and the draft, so the cupboard's bare. I mean, you were talking about speedy third and fourth receivers, and we had a couple. Marquise Goodwin comes to mind. He did all right, and Damiere Byrd. Yeah, those two guys. You can get by with them for this next year, but I think they're both free agents. Yeah, the Pickens on Georgia is probably going to be there in the second round. He's a good wide receiver.
Yeah.
Purdue had a couple good wide receivers too.
And I've always thought that it takes a while for rookie wide receivers to excel in the NFL, but that's begun to change over the last several years.
Yeah.
I mean, it was an anomaly back then when you had a rookie like Randy Moss who comes in as a rookie and has a sensational rookie season.
Yep.
That was an anomaly, but now more and more we're seeing rookie wide receivers come into the NFL and have good seasons. A lot of that has to do with the fact that coaches in the NFL are adopting more and more of the playbooks and schemes that we see in the college football game. Hey, Vinny Parisi is here.
Yeah, that's my guy.
Yeah.
Hanover Park Little League, Vinny.
Vinny will be on
which one of the brothers did he ever answer the question of which one of the brothers was the big home run hitter, Vinny or Joey?
Oh, it was definitely Joey, right, Vinny? He's going to yell at me tomorrow. Vinny, Joey.
They were like a year or two older than my son. So,
yeah.
But
those three guys will be
co-hosting
hosting Bar Down Hockey Talk tomorrow at 2 p.m. And it's not just hockey talk. Those guys talk football. You better believe they're going to talk a lot about the Super Bowl. And that's at 2 p.m. tomorrow. I hope you will tune in for their show. Toa had a question here. I think he had a set question. Good question, Aldo. Would you be okay? Oh, let me put that one back up. Good question, Aldo. Would you be okay if they took offensive line or with the second round or first? Depends, Toa. Totally depends on what happens in free agency. And so if they pick up a reliable starter in free agency, then I think they need to get a wide receiver in that second round as high as possible to ensure success. And Vinny's response to that, 1,000,000%, it was me that was hitting our home runs.
Yeah, one of them was a big slugger, man. They used to hit the ball a long way.
Mm-hmm. Both of them are very, I mean, these guys, you talk about living sports. When they are,
they're characters.
They're awesome guys. Awesome.
Yeah, they were characters when they were kids on the Little League team.
Mm-hmm. All right. Anything else? Let's see what Bear Truth has to say here. Depending on free agency, I'm getting the highest graded wide receiver, offensive lineman, and 3 tech. Bear Truth 9. Yes. This 3 tech defensive lineman now has become a high priority for this team. I don't think Bilal Nichols is that guy. I just feel like you got to find somebody that can come in and at the very least compete with Bilal Nichols at that position. And Santucci is totally right. This team is at least 1 year away from competing. To me, it would be a miracle if the Bears get into the playoffs, given how deep a hole Ryan Pace left this new organization. Scott Osborne asked, will Eddie Jackson get traded? What do you think, Tooch?
Well, I wouldn't be against it, but I don't think his salary, I don't know what we'd get for him,
Yeah, so you're going to get a 4th round, 5th round pick for Eddie Jackson, and you're going to lose your starting free safety, and you're moving to a cover 2 defense, which could really be helpful for Eddie Jackson because it might mean that he doesn't have to play in the box. And so that we're going to limit the amount of tackling that he has to do. So I think the biggest thing with Eddie Jackson is, can he go through a mental rehabilitation so that he isn't so into just thinking takeaways, and instead he's thinking, what can I do to help win this game? And if that means sacrificing my body and tackling Derrick Henry, then doing it, because Eddie Jackson doesn't have that mentality right now.
There's no way he would sacrifice his body to tackle Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's going through him. I'll tell you that right now.
I remember when they had that charity softball game in Schaumburg 3-4 seasons ago, and Greg Braggs and I were there, and we interviewed Eddie Jackson, and Greg Braggs, who is probably 5'10", and at the time he was heavier than he is now, maybe 220, 225. He looked like he could beat the shit out of Eddie Jackson. I was like, holy shit, Eddie Jackson is small, man. No wonder he doesn't want to tackle.
Yeah.
Vinny says, if Rodgers leaves Green Bay, then I think the Bears could win the division with an 8-9 or 9-8 record. But if he doesn't, no shot. Too many holes. That's the big question now, is that it looks like Green Bay is all in on trying to retain Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron Rodgers is the guy in control of what his future is going to be look like, because he had his contract renegotiated, and so he's got the opportunity to leave the Packers, play somewhere else, or there's been talk that he's even considering retirement. But the Packers could, franchise tag Devontae Adams, patch up some of the offensive line issues, and give Rodgers enough weapons for him to feel like, let me come back because I'm comfortable with the fact that the Packers are allowing me more input into how to design that team. Hair Bear says if Rodgers stays in Green Bay, they won't be able to afford anybody else on the team. Yeah, Hair Bear, but we were talking about earlier, there are certain things that you can do to free up some cap space. It might mean, losing some defensive starters, and,
there's a new TV deal though coming, right?
That is going to create a lot of cap dollars in 2023, 2024, 2025. So the key thing is can you entice free agents to come and backload their contracts so that you can get by having a 2022 season and not be over the cap. So
I think, when we were talking with Dan, and he's very optimistic over the new guys because they're not Pace and Nagy. And that's understandable, but
that's huge.
It's huge. But Aldo and I are kind of like, well, George and Ted are still there evaluating everything, and Aldo and I are kind of wondering, Barflies, that if did George and Ted learn the lesson of leaving Pace to mind the store, because the fucking store is fucking losing money, in bad shape.
Mm-hmm.
The salary cap of the players, it's all no draft picks. It's like, he gave away the store,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know if George and Ted are smart enough or wise enough or whatever you want to call it, savvy enough to know what they're looking at and to avoid the same situation happening again.
I totally agree. This is, again, I wish I was a fly in the wall or able to videotape these interviews with coaches and GMs. And so that had to be one of the key topics of discussion is, George McCaskey should have phrased it this way. How are you going to better manage my fucking money, than the last guy who has now left us paying for Charles Leno next season? In fact, we're paying him so much, we had to put him on the calendar.
Put him on the fucking calendar. God damn it. I'm getting my money out of him.
Exactly. I should drop Charles a DM because I think it's his wife follows me. I should drop him a DM with a picture of
him. He's still on the fucking calendar. The thing was when I was debating Aaron Mikulski and Dan, about he's a 33-year-old kid or whatever, but because that's kind of like what we did. We did the same thing again, was hiring someone who may not know how to mind the store,
mm-hmm.
Again. without the experience to know cap management and all this stuff. Maybe he does. I don't know. You know, I don't. I'm not holding my breath. You know, thinking he's gonna be some kind of savvy drafter, savvy cap manager, savvy pro personnel manager, and know enough to run a football organization. I just don't think that's what I think. George McCaskey drafted a guy to pick players for him in the draft. That's what I don't know. You want somebody who's going to oversee the guy who's picking draft picks. A guy who's going to oversee the pro player personnel department. The scouting department, all of it, every facet of it. And that if George McCaskey is that person, well, we're in trouble again.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Bear Truth 9 regarding the Aaron Rodgers thing. The question is, does Rodgers think he can win it all with a team that may be losing key offensive or defensive players? Yeah, that is the key. Yeah. Aaron Rodgers said so after the season. There's a lot of changes coming to the Packers. They're going to have to make some serious changes with their roster, and that means losing starting players.
There's so many places he could go.
Yeah, and so there might be another team that's willing to pay him the $30-40 million because they got the cap space, but already have the weapons like Detroit with Jerry Jeudy and some of the other young pass catching guys. Not Detroit, Denver seems like a ready-made team for Rodgers to go there and compete. Stephen Nagishi is very hopeful. He thinks George has learned his lessons. So we'll see, Stephen. We'll see. PJ says, is Adrian Amos a possible cap casualty in Green Bay? Damn right he is. Damn right he is. And so would he be interested in coming back to Chicago? I think he would. I don't think there were any burnt bridges whatsoever. If the money is right, Adrian Amos is coming here. But we know that his first allegiance is to getting a big payday. This will be his last big fat contract that he can land. And if the Bears can afford to give him that big fat contract. Now, safeties are generally underpaid in the NFL. I don't know why. I think that's one of the most important positions in today's NFL. But for the last decade or so, I've seen lots of quality safeties available well after free agency frenzy. It's like the last position people think about the NFL general managers is the safeties and the center or the guards, and those guys
That's
are
what we need the most.
Exactly. I don't get it. I don't get it. Sometimes I wonder if the people who are making decisions still aren't living in the 80s and 90s in terms of building teams and are slow to understand that the rule changes have necessitated different thinking in terms of building a team. Stephen Nagishi says, I bet Getsy can lure several deep players from the Packers.
I'm all for it.
Yeah, bring them on. Bring them on.
Stealing from the enemy.
Isn't there a key offensive lineman that is for the Packers that's headed towards free agency? And I'm not talking about an old guy like David Bakhtiari. Let me do a quick search of that. But yeah, those are the guys to look at.
There's some centers out there. I mean, Ryan Jensen on the Buccaneers is pretty good. But of course, he's on the older side.
Mm-hmm.
Vikings young centers had a pretty good year. That Brian Allen was a guy I liked out of Michigan State. But yeah, you either sign somebody in free agency to play the center position, or you're going center in the draft for sure.
Yeah,
you have to.
Yeah, Dennis Kelly, their right tackle, 32-year-old, is a free agent. Lucas Patrick, the guard over there, he's a 28-year-old offensive lineman. Cornerback Kevin King, who hasn't lived up to expectations, is a free agent lineman, a free agent player available. Cornerback Chandon Sullivan, a cornerback for the Packers. Equanimous St. Brown is and I'm not a big fan of him.
See, there's a name you won't forget. Aldo Equanimous.
Yes, exactly.
Fucking ain't no Alan Williams. Give me Equanimous.
By the way, did you know that his father and his brother, who plays for the Detroit Lions, their father was a world champion weightlifter, not weightlifter, bodybuilder. bodybuilder, and he changed his last name to St. Brown because it had a better ring. And so he named his sons with names that you're not going to forget. Equinemius. Yeah. So, those are
Amon-Ra.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Where's Don Burr? Tell us all about Amon-Ra.
Mm-hmm.
Don Burr.
Yep.
Don Burr. Is Don Burr celebrating Matt Stafford getting a ring?
He did say that. I don't know if it was today, but he did say, I think it was during the Gabriel show, that he was happy for Matt Stafford. So there you go. Yeah. Scott Osborne is asking, does Daniels get re-signed or is he history? We talked about this a little earlier, Scott. I am for re-signing him because I think he's so young and he still has the ability, the capacity to improve. But Aguirre is not a fan of James Daniels. Tooch, what do you say? Are you signing him? If you could get him for like $9 million, would you sign him?
Well, I mean, I see. Here's the thing. Do I like James Daniels? Yeah, sure. But I mean, like next year is a rebuilding. You might as well draft a guard, and just pay him what a 4th, 5th round pick salary. And you probably, you're not going to, coach him up. You're not going to, I mean, there might be also guards. You can move Larry Borum. If you sign you could sign a tackle in free agency. Maybe there's talk about Cam Robinson, the left tackle for the Jaguars, possibly coming to the Bears if they decide to, maybe he's finally about to blossom into that left tackle stud. And then you move Borum to guard. You don't need James Daniels unless he's going to center. He couldn't do center because his voice was softer than Michael Jackson's voice. Exactly. When you get into these big stadiums like Arrowhead Stadium where you can't hear a fucking thing, James Daniels is not going to be able to make any calls.
And that's the thing with Daniels is, he was criticized for not making the accurate calls, making mistakes, and not having a voice that the other linemen could hear over the crowd. And then the other thing is just that mean streak. He never displayed that mean streak that really endeared Tevin Jenkins and Larry Borum to the Bears last season when they drafted. They wanted to transform, and this was upon the orders of Juan Castillo, the offensive line coach. They wanted to transform the offensive line to a mean bunch of guys, and I like that. And so if Daniels can prove that he can grow a mean streak and he can also make the calls necessary, then signing him to an $8, $9, $10 million contract at center might be the way to go. So I don't know.
think I've ever heard his voice, to be honest. I just remember that story came out that his voice was too quiet or soft.
Yes, exactly. It's not like it's not deep. Yeah. He's not a soprano. I think Tooch was just joking about the Michael Jackson thing. Yeah. It was just audibly that he wasn't speaking up loud enough. So Bear Truth 9 says he disagrees with me. I don't doubt that you should, Bear Truth. Whatever it is I said, you're probably right. I'm probably wrong. Steven says Bozeman from Baltimore is another free agent center who could be a great addition. You're absolutely right. I interviewed him at the Senior Bowl a few years ago, and there were a lot of questions about whether he could turn himself into a viable NFL player because there were some concerns about his height. But yeah, he's played well, and he definitely deserves consideration as a potential Bear acquisition during free agency. What else we got here? Let's see. Adeptus says, so the real question, how many players is the Getsy connection going to be able to poach from the pack? That is the key thing, and I think it goes beyond just Getsy. If you have players from Green Bay who say, man, I really like this coach. But the big thing every free agent player is going to ask is, who's the quarterback? And if they believe in Justin Fields, like a lot of us do, then that's going to really, really help sign players because it's all about the quarterback, man. Hallballs 34. I think he's new. I've never seen him before. He says, in my opinion, go after the wide receiver in free agency and draft O-line. I don't know, Hallballs. Tell me what you think about this, Tooch, but I think you got to do both. You got to get wide receivers in the draft and a free agency, and the same thing with offensive linemen. You know, you need so much.
Yeah, we need so many things. We got to take a stab at both places. We got to dip in both cookie jars.
Yep. And
we need
Stephen
one hand in each
Medici,
cookie jar, Aldo.
exactly. One hand in each cookie jar and your dick out.
Yep.
I better not go there.
And
Stephen
no
Medici.
toilet paper.
That's right. Stephen Medici asked, do you guys like Alan Lazard? Greg Gabriel and I have been talking about Lazard for the last 3-4 weeks. I love him.
I like him.
Not that he's going to come here and catch 80 passes, but he can catch 40 to 50 passes, and his downfield blocking is second to none in the NFL. I think he would be an excellent acquisition for he might even sign with the Bears for $2 or $3 million. So
another Iowa kid right here in Urbandale, Iowa, went to Iowa State.
Yep.
David Montgomery's teammate.
He would be a great, third or fourth wide receiver in your depth chart. So I definitely now he is a restricted free agent, so you would have to match whatever the Packers, if the Packers tender him, which is they probably will, because he's not going to require that much money, and they got to fill their roster somehow. So I will say the Packers will probably tender him for like $1.7 million. So the Bears might have to come up with $2 million. And so I would weigh that and probably say yes, Oh, we lost the Tooch. He just said, fuck this, man. I'm sleepy. Dan and I got to go to bed. Anyway, I'm about ready to wrap things up here. Tooch is headed back here. I see him popping up on the screen. There he is. What a good-looking guy.
Kicked me off.
Who kicked you off?
StreamYard, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, because you look like a Russian.
What are you saying, this gun deal?
Anyway, it's about that time that we pulled the plug on this. We've got a close to 3-hour show, another 4 minutes.
Forgot to tell you though, I took your recommendation, started watching the Korean zombie movie or series.
Yes, what do you think?
I like it, man. I'm addicted now. It's like the special effects, both CGI and practical, are fantastic. So underrated. Yeah. I mean, they look so fucking real. Some of the crazy shit that happens. It looks so real.
I know, man. Yeah. It is so fucking
good. And then I watched Reacher. I don't know if did I mention that one last time? The Amazon Prime.
Yes.
Binge that. That's awesome. If you guys get a chance to watch that, you'll really like it. And saw Nightmare Alley. Of course, we talked about that. I love the ending. And let's see. That's about it. Not much else. Saw the James Bond movie, the latest one.
Oh, really? How is that?
It's good. Really good, man. Rami Malek is awesome. Really good actor.
He really is.
Yeah.
The last James Bond movie I saw was the previous one. No, that wasn't James Bond. That was Mission Impossible that I reviewed.
Yeah, that was great.
For your old show, I have a stream.
Yeah.
That was really well done.
Very well done. Yeah.
Shot throughout Europe and stuff. I got to tell you really quickly, these reality dating shows, Tooch looks like the WWE executive Nick Khan. Yeah, you do look like Nick Khan.
He must be a handsome fella.
He must be. These dating reality shows like the
90 Day Fiance.
90 Day Fiance. I've seen a couple episodes, more than a couple episodes of that thing. And Netflix now has one called Love is Blind. And the premise is that they have 20 women and 20 guys. And for 10 days, you talk to the member of the opposite sex, but it's through a wall, a glassed wall. So you don't get to see that person. And so you try to establish relationships with that opposite sex person. And after the 10 days, or any time during the 10 days, if you establish a relationship, you can then ask that person to marry you. So there are guys and girls who, after a few days, they say, I get along with you so well. I don't care what you look like. Love is blind. I'm in love with you.
They're fucking heinous, right? They're like fucking scar-faced.
And so there has been a couple of occasions when they meet face to face. It's like, ooh, love may be blind, but it ain't right. that was trending this weekend on Netflix, and so my wife and I saw 5 episodes. It's hilarious.
What's it called again? I got
called Love is Blind, and this is actually the 2nd season of it. And then there's another dating show on Netflix called Dating Around, and I really love the way this one is produced. It's 30-minute episodes, and so let's say, John, you're going to go out on a date with 5 different women, and then at the end you have to make a decision as to who you will pick for the second date. Who do you want to continue to pursue a relationship? And what's cool about it is the way that it's edited. So you'll see yourself walking in with the date from the first date and sitting down, having drinks, talking, and then there'll be like a jump cut and you're talking to the second person you're dating, and or there'll be another cut and you'll be talking to the third person and so forth. So it's all edited in kind of this continuous style. And they ask the person who is dating these multiple people to dress the same for all 5 dates. Because at first I was thinking, wow, this guy is fucking dating all 5 women in one night and they're having drinks the entire night. No,
at the same time.
Yeah, no, it's
Or
not
like
at the same time.
Successively.
It's different dates, but it seems like it's the same time because they asked that person to wear the same clothing. So it's a nice goof show to watch with the wife and have some fun. And I live vicariously through these dating shows, So I love my wife. I love making love to my wife and so forth. But every once in a while, I'll watch The Bachelor just to knock one out,
Do you watch Ozark?
Oh, I've watched season 1 and loved it, and have not seen any of the seasons.
It's a great show. And then I don't know if you remember the actress Ruth that plays Ruth.
Mm-hmm.
She's like the curly-haired.
I love her. Sensational actress. Yes,
she has a show on Netflix where she plays like this Russian or British or American con artist. I don't know what she is, but she's like a con artist. It's a series. I can't remember the name of it right now, but my wife and I just started watching it. It's very good.
I've seen her out promoting the show, like she was on Fallon and a couple other shows. I don't remember the title. I haven't seen it, but I love her.
I was enjoying that. I was watching that recently too. And of course, I'm watching 1883, the prequel to Yellowstone, which I haven't watched Yellowstone, but I love the 1883, the prequel series. Very well done.
I've got that on my bucket list to watch. And next week, one of the other things we'll do with Dan, so Tooch, if you can at least see an episode or 2 of that Bill Cosby documentary. Showtime.
Showtime, sure.
Yeah, we have to talk about Bill Cosby as the title. It's by Camille. I'm mispronouncing his first name. Camille Bell.
Kamau Bell.
Yeah, that's him. Stand-up comedian, and the entire series is looking at the whole Bill Cosby phenomenon through the eyes of Black people. And this guy was a role model for Black people, and he opened doors. You and I, John, I mean, I'm older than you, but do you remember when Bill Cosby was on the show I Spy with Robert Culp?
Sure. Yeah, he was on the Electric Company too.
Yeah, that I Spy show. That was huge. That was the first time an African American.
Robert Culp and
Bill Cosby. And he won Emmys. I think he won 2 or 3 Emmys. I mean, and that was huge for the Black community. And he went on to star in so many other shows and had great comedy albums. I remember. I didn't buy it. My uncle had it, and I stole it from him. He had a comedy album that was about his experiences playing college sports, and it was hilarious. I would listen to that thing over and over and over again as a kid. And then, we learned that this guy was drugging women and having sex with them. And the documentary is so well done about the clues that he left behind. Even some of the scenes in the Cosby Show where he was talking about Spanish Fly and blah, 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 and stuff like that. It's really, really good. Dan is really taken by the documentary because Dan says that when he was a kid watching the Cosby Show, that was his favorite show. And
I used to watch it too.
Yeah. We'll talk about that. PJ says Bill Cosby was a role model for all of us, for Black people, white people, you name it. Bill Cosby was sensational, and it's just unfortunate he had this very sinister side to him. That is it, man. We just went over the 3-hour mark. Tooch, thank you so much for staying up late. You don't have
great.
to do this, but you join us every week, and
It's probably the best time of the week for me.
There you go.
Even though I had some Valentine's sex with the wife, once if the toddlers go to bed at just the right time, before I fall asleep, I still have some energy left. The toddlers wear me out, man. I'll tell you.
Yeah, I bet. They're not good for the sex life either.
No.
All right. Thank you for everyone in the chat room. It's been great interacting with you. You're really a big part of the show, and it's fun to play off of some of the stuff that you write. And those of you listening to the audio podcast, hopefully you can join us on a Tuesday night and participate in the chat with us. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if not, just send us something, send Tooch or myself or Dan a DM if you want us to talk about something. And I say that, and I've had a couple of DMs, people asking me to talk about stuff, and I haven't gotten to it, but I promise I will. And tomorrow, as I mentioned, at 2 p.m. Central, it's Bar Down with Vinny, Joey, Parisi, and their cousin, Frank Mueller. It's a great, great show. If you haven't had a chance to listen to Bar Down, even if you're not a big hockey fan, trust me, you will enjoy, because these guys do such a great job of presenting what they've got from a sports perspective. And then tomorrow night, I think we've got science fiction tomorrow, and I'm not sure what the guys will be talking about, but it'll be
Probably
something.
the new Batman coming out,
Yeah, in fact, we've been looking for a guest, a Batman expert, to talk about the Batman movie. So that might be tomorrow or the following week. But yeah, are you excited about the new Batman movie, Tooch?
Well, it looks pretty good, but I mean, I'm struck by the fact that we tell the same Batman story over and over again, and everybody loves it every time we tell the story. We had Michael Keaton. It was a reinvention of the Adam West series, and then the next was what George Clooney came on. He got his shot, right? And then Ben Affleck, and then or Christian Bale, Ben Affleck, and now you got Robert Pattinson. So, but it's like the retelling of the Batman story. So
it is a mythic story that is timeless. Orphaned child, sees his parents murdered, grows up to want to be an avenger of crime, but is mistaken as to being a criminal and stuff. It's beautifully done. The whole Dark Knight continuation of that is so fucking well done. The Christopher Nolan movies, that's one of my favorite movie trilogies of all time. I love that stuff.
Yeah, the third one was fantastic with Tom Hardy as the villain.
Yes.
Yeah, The Dark Knight Rises. Yeah, that was great.
PJ, I apologize that I did not respond to your message on Facebook. I don't do Facebook that often anymore. I'm feuding with Steve Zuckerman, but I will look for it, and then I will make sure to do a better job of that. So I apologize, PJ.
I don't go on Facebook either. I'm convinced that they're spying on us.
I agree with you, man.
Predictive algorithms will know where you are when you're taking a shit without toilet paper.
I agree. There's something sinister going on with the people over at Facebook. And so I try to stay off of it as much as possible. And I hate it too, because so many of my family members are only on Facebook, and that's always been a good way to stay in touch with family and stuff. So
I let my wife do all that stuff. She's all into the Facebook and stuff. I like Twitter. That's my favorite, but
me too. Same here. And I'm hoping to get into Instagram in a big way in 2022, but we'll see about that. There's just so much stuff. Instagram, social media. Shit, man. I can't stay on top of it. But I can't stay on top of this show. Dan and Aldo bare their souls. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you all very soon. Tooch, thanks a lot. By the way, follow Tooch at John Santucci VIP. That's Santucci, Santucci VIP at John Santucci. Make sure you follow him. All right. Adios.